Chapter 869. Inside the God-binding scale cage. Wang Feng tried his best, but he couldn't break it. He couldn't release it from the outside, and the inside would absorb the attack and distribute it to all the scales. No matter how strong the attack was, it wouldn't be able to cause any significant damage to the scales. The reflected power made it impossible for him to attack continuously, and he couldn't use continuous damage to strengthen his attack. Wang Feng thought for a long time, and he thought of the Ice Flame Fury Lotus. The Ice Flame Fury Lotus's attack range was thousands of meters. Even a small city could be directly bombed to the ground. Although this scale cage was huge, it was much smaller than the Ice Flame Fury Lotus's attack. If it exploded in such a place, the Ice Flame Fury Lotus's energy would be compressed, and it would be even more powerful. In addition, Wang Feng was still invincible. He still had a chance to destroy this scale cage. With his martial soul true body, the Ice Flame Fury Lotus's power was increased by 100%, and it was naturally very powerful. There was another key point: his 100,000-year soul ring. His second soul ring was already a 100,000-year soul ring. The power of this attack wasn't inferior to any of Wang Feng's other attacks. However, the only downside was that the attacks from the outside continued, and Wang Feng was constantly attacked from the inside. He couldn't charge the Ice Flame Fury Lotus. Otherwise, he would be interrupted. After a while, the attacks from the outside stopped. Wang Feng was a little surprised. Did Long Xie stop? That's impossible. That could mean that something else had happened. No matter what, Wang Feng didn't need to think too much. He just needed to take this opportunity to release the Ice Flame Fury Lotus. Wang Feng had rarely used this move. Because the area was too big and it was a group attack, he couldn't control it. If he wasn't careful, both sides would be killed. Furthermore, as Wang Feng's attacks increased, he didn't lack group attack soul skills. Most importantly, he didn't need them. Without large-scale battles, group attack soul skills weren't as powerful as single-target soul skills. But now, this move might be the key to breaking this scale cage. The red lotus in his hand was blooming with the colors of ice and fire. One red and one blue, and it seemed to contain an explosion that could destroy heaven and earth. After charging, the red lotus seemed to have grown several times bigger. Wang Feng threw it out and it floated in midair. Because he didn't use it often, Wang Feng almost forgot what it looked like. Explode. In the next moment, every lotus petal exploded. The icy blue and fiery red light blocked Wang Feng's vision. The attack had no blind spots. Coupled with the compression of the scale cage, this move exploded with unparalleled power. It had to be known that an attack range of several thousand meters was compressed into a scale cage with a diameter of only 100 meters. Now that the range had shrunk by several dozen times, Wang Feng did not know how much stronger this move would become. However, when it erupted, Wang Feng did feel the power of this move. To be honest, he was a little strong. The powerful airflow caused him to be blown to the left and right, and he was directly slammed into the wall of the cage. A thumping sound could be heard. Without the invincible state, Wang Feng would definitely be injured in his current situation. And it wasn't just a light injury, it was a serious one. How strong was his body now? Even a rank 99 transcendent Douluo couldn't possibly be stronger than his body. After the Ice Flame Fury Lotus was compressed to this extent, the power of its explosion was something Wang Feng couldn't imagine. Coupled with the fact that it was an all-around attack, all the scales inside the cage were hit by the explosion and icicles. The scorching fire burned every blood-red dragon scale. No matter how flat the damage was, it was useless. After a while, Wang Feng released the weight of the mysterious underworld armor, but it couldn't completely block the airflow caused by the explosion. One could only imagine, after a while. It slowly stopped. Wang Feng looked around and was slightly delighted. As expected, his thoughts were correct. This scale cage couldn't absorb such an all-around attack. There were some cracks vaguely. At this moment, Wang Feng's innate 5-direction domain had disappeared, but he was still not afraid. The innate 5-direction flags were in cooldown, but Wang Feng still had the defense of the Black Lotus. In his martial soul true body form, he could still protect himself from such an explosion by using 2 forms. However, the effect of this Ice Flame Fury Lotus was a little exaggerated. Wang Feng couldn't take it if there were a few more. Just like this, after the 3rd attack, there were finally many more cracks in the scale cage. But it was still lacking. Wang Feng rested for a while and used the Black Lotus to replenish his soul power. Just as Wang Feng was condensing the 4th attack, it was also at this moment. Bibidan swung her Rakshasa demon scythe, gathered all her strength and slashed at the crack. At the same time, Long Xie saw this from afar. Almost at the same time as Bibidan swung her Rakshasa demon scythe, Long Xie didn't hesitate. She opened her mouth and spat out an intense blood-red beam of light at Bibidan. With Bibidong's speed, he could easily avoid the blood-colored light pillar that was emitting an extremely evil aura. But she didn't. Almost at the same time as the Rakshasa demon scythe landed on the crack in the scale cage, the blood-red beam of light hit her directly. She was bathed in the blood-red beam of light. The remaining 4 spider legs on her back were instantly shattered. Even one of the soul bones in his body had shattered. It was a direct hit. Long Xie's attack wasn't weak. Moreover, Bibidan was using all her strength to attack the crack. She didn't have time to defend herself at all. At the same time, under the attack of the Rakshasa demon scythe, the crack gradually became bigger. Countless cracks spread throughout the entire God-binding scale cage. Then, boom! The entire God-binding scale cage was shattered. Countless dragon scales scattered with a rustling sound. Bibidan spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was extremely pale. She was severely injured by this attack. But she didn't die. She just suffered a great loss. She was falling rapidly, but her eyes were fixed on the figure that was revealed as the God-binding scale cage was destroyed. Bibidan seemed to have received confirmation. A light flashed across her eyes. At the same time, Wang Feng also stared blankly at Bibidan, who was falling from above and looking at him. He was also looking at Bibidan. His mind was frozen. Time seemed to have stopped. Everything seemed to be frozen at this moment. The blood-red dragon scales were like flowers falling from the sky. Only the 2 of them were staring at each other. Logically speaking, Bibidan didn't look very good right now, because it seemed to be in its martial soul true form. The Soul-Eater Spider Emperor was an extremely vicious and savage arachnid soul beast. However, Wang Feng felt that the current Bibidan made him feel a little move. Bibidan closed her eyes when she saw Wang Feng staring at her. After receiving confirmation, she didn't seem to want to look at him. In the next moment, Bibidan felt a light that felt like a spring breeze fall on his body. His internal injuries were rapidly recovering. At the same time, a huge sword landed below Bibidan and caught her. End of chapter. Chapter 870. I didn't expect it to be her. Wang Feng shook his head. It had only been a month, but it felt like years. Almost immediately, Wang Feng understood what had happened. Long Xie's attack had stopped because Bibidan had come and fought with him. Long Xie couldn't continue attacking. He had bought some time for himself. Bibidan should have seen the crack on the scale cage. He was almost there, but his soul power was too strong. After all, he had just used the innate 5-direction domain, so he had to rest to recover. Bibidan planned to attack the crack from the outside, but Long Xie must have seen it and wanted to stop him, so he attacked Bibidan. Bibidan slowly opened his eyes. On the other side of the sword, Wang Feng stood quietly. The black light shield formed by the Black Lotus covered the sword formed by the mysterious underworld spike. Bibidan stood up, looked at Wang Feng, and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. I owe you for what happened last time. Wang Feng, as expected of Bibidan. Can you pay me back? Wang Feng asked with interest. Bibidan. Maybe. I can't pay you back. The 100,000-year soul beast was nothing, but the 8th test was special. She passed it perfectly and saw through her inner demon. Now, she had received the inheritance of the divine position without any help. Her state of mind had changed, and she had the martial spirit alliance, the master of the continent. Bibidon was silent. At this moment, "You don't owe me anything." Wang Feng shook his head. "I did those things in the martial spirit palace to gain your trust. To put it bluntly, back in the Rakshasa mystic realm, I wanted to use the original sin domain to destroy your deity position inheritance. I just didn't expect that I would help you pass the 8th test." Wang Fengxin had always had a complicated feeling about Bibidon. He was the first villain in the original work, but after entering the Luosha secret realm, Wang Feng understood Bibidon completely. How should he put it? A man's bad nature. He felt a little sympathy for the other party and felt that he was also a tragedy. However, Wang Feng did not pity Bibidon. With Bibidon's strength at that time, there was no need for Wang Feng to pity him. That was why he decided that he would only destroy the other party's deity position inheritance. Then, she would downplay the conflict between her and Tangsan's group. However, he didn't expect that not only did his plan fail, but it also accelerated the other party's progress. With the current Martial Soul Alliance and the demigod Bibidong, even Qian Rinxue had not reached this level yet. Wang Feng said this because he felt that there was no need to hide it anymore. Because his identity had been completely exposed. "I know." Bibidon fell silent for a moment before murmuring, "When your identity was exposed, I already guessed it when I asked you about it on the Sea God's Island." Wang Feng smiled. Actually, if his identity was exposed, it would be very easy to guess that he was in the Rakshasa mystic realm. Because he was a spy at that time, how could he help an enemy? It could only be a coincidence. "You don't owe me anything." Wang Feng looked at Long Xie in the distance, whose dragon scales had returned to his body. "No, I owe you," Bibidon said. "Wang Feng, this mother and daughter were really carved out of the same mold. Their stubborn and straightforward personalities were quite similar. However, Qian Rinxue was still fine. Bibidon probably wouldn't be easily influenced by others. This kind of person would definitely think that she was right. Even if she was wrong, it was almost impossible to change her mind. "Last time, I did want to kill you." Bibidon transformed back into her martial soul true body and gradually returned to her human form. Her clothes were already tattered because of the battle just now. Her snow-white skin was revealed. She was extremely tall, at least 1.78 meters, the standard height of a queen. With shoes, she was easily 1.80 meters tall and gave off a great pressure. At this moment, she was only a few centimeters shorter than Wang Feng. "You were indeed hurt by me. This time, I've returned half of your life. Also, I've already killed Wang Feng." Bibidon looked at the man in front of her and said indifferently, "You're Wang Wu." Her voice was filled with decisiveness. Even though she was severely injured, she was still the lofty and noble pontiff. Wang Feng. Wang Feng frantically told himself in his heart, "Women are illogical. Don't talk to them about logic." "All right." Wang Feng looked at Long Xie in the distance. This dragon's strength had already exceeded Wang Feng's expectations. He was in a good state right now. He was injured, and his spiritual power and soul power had been greatly depleted. Bibidon's injury should be quite serious. She was recovering quickly with the Golden Lotus healing, but she couldn't fully recover in a short time. Long Xie had also expended a lot of soul power. However, its recovery speed wasn't any slower than theirs. Long Xie didn't attack right away when it saw Wang Feng come out. Instead, it absorbed the dense blood-black mist around it. "You want to kill him?" Bibidon saw the situation in Wang Feng's eyes. "Why don't you use that axe?" Wang Feng naturally didn't want to use it. His soul rings were all red. As he became stronger, his Pangu axe would definitely be stronger. However, it was also harder to control. The main reason was that he couldn't control his explosive blood attack. If he used the Pangu axe, it would be a one-on-one fight. He would definitely be injured and he would bleed. Once he bled, it would be game over. Wang Feng didn't think it would be as easy as last time. His spiritual power had made a temporary breakthrough, and he was able to control it in time. His spiritual power wasn't increasing quickly because it was being compressed. His spiritual power had been stuck for more than half a year, so he was able to make a breakthrough then. Even if he used it, Wang Feng wasn't sure if he could kill Long Xie. Wang Feng looked at Bibidon. Bibidon was also gone. She had been thinking about what had happened back then for the past few days. She didn't understand the situation back then. She was too emotional and lost some of her ability to think. She only managed to organize her thoughts after she woke up. Wang Wu was definitely in an uncontrollable state back then. He only managed to stop it at the last moment. He didn't use it now probably because he wasn't able to adapt to that special attack. This was to prevent any accident. However, Bibidon was a little curious. How did he survive? I don't want to use it. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie with a burning gaze. I have an idea. With the strength of the two of us, we can kill him. Bibidon was startled. What idea do you have? This was an extremely powerful million-year soul beast. It had extremely high intelligence, powerful strength, and a terrifying dragon body. It could be said that it was the strongest creature Bibidon had seen in so many years. If the dragon scales were still there, he wouldn't be a match for it. Even if Wang Wu didn't use that axe, he wouldn't be a match for it. End of chapter. Chapter 871. Bibidon was still confident if the two of them were in their best condition. But now, one of her soul bones was broken. Her condition was declining. Although Wang Wu's condition was still okay, his consumption was definitely huge. It was indeed huge. Very simple, Wang Feng slowly said 5 words, Martial Soul Fusion Skill. Hearing this, Bibidon was stunned. Martial Soul Fusion Skill? With their strength, using a martial soul fusion skill could indeed unleash a terrifying power. Although Wang Feng was only rank 80, his strength was similar to hers. And his martial soul was definitely stronger than her twin martial souls. It seemed to be possible. But, how difficult was it to use a martial soul fusion skill? Martial soul fusion skills were as rare as soul bones. They were extremely rare. The probability was too low, and the requirements were too high. The most basic point was that the two peaks had to cooperate with each other and know each other well. More importantly, the compatibility of the martial souls. Her twin martial souls were two extremely evil and ferocious spider emperors. There was almost no one on this continent who could be compatible with her martial soul. Coupled with her identity as the Pope, who was qualified to be her martial soul fusion target. Even if there was someone who was compatible with her martial soul, it was impossible for them to be stronger than her. Their aura was naturally inferior, and they still wanted to fuse with her martial soul? Who could understand her? If they didn't understand her heart, how could they be connected to her heart and achieve a perfect fusion? A single glance from Bibidon would probably cause the other party to piss his pants in fear, causing his mind to tremble. Those titled Douluo were the same. Who could understand her? If they didn't understand her heart, how could they be connected to her heart and achieve a perfect fusion? It was impossible for Bibidon to tell others about his own matters. Therefore, martial soul fusion skill was a big killing weapon that Bibidon had never thought of, because she felt that she was enough and didn't need any martial soul fusion skill. But now, Wang Wu's words seemed to have opened a new world for her. In terms of understanding, Wang Wu was the person who knew her the best in this world. Coupled with Wang Wu's identity being exposed, Bibidon naturally knew Wang Wu very well. Perhaps the only thing that Bibidon didn't know was that Wang Feng's meteoric tear and the system already had the former secret word and the one secret word. However, she knew most of Wang Feng's character, ability, and the things that happened on this continent. Moreover, he knew it very well. In that case, it would be fine as long as their martial souls were compatible. Give it a try? Wang Feng looked at the Bibidon. Bibidon nodded gently, a rare sense of anticipation rising in his heart. It was a special emotion that Bibidon had not experienced for a long time. At this moment, Long Xie's injuries were mostly healed due to his extremely fast recovery speed. Bibi Dong and Long Xie's injuries weren't serious to begin with. Long Xie wasn't afraid at all. He planned to use 999% of his strength. Scared? There was no way he would be afraid. He would never be afraid. He didn't have that kind of fear. He who should have died was able to survive. No one in this world could kill him, unless a true god descended. Only then would it be possible. At this moment, Wang Feng pondered for a moment. Bibidon was thinking, and so was he. Which of the different forms should be most compatible with Bibidon's martial soul? Theoretically speaking, the Black Lotus should be the most compatible form. That was because the Black Lotus could absorb all kinds of violent and evil auras. It belonged to the evil category. It should be most compatible with Bibidon's martial soul. Wang Feng bragged that the chaotic green lotus form should be able to fuse with most martial souls in the world. That was because of the chaotic green lotus. His martial soul fusion with the 7 monsters had already proven this point. However, Wang Feng didn't plan to take the normal path. He planned to use the white lotus, which was the most incompatible with Bibidon, as the martial soul fusion target. The reason was simple. The white lotus had the most deadly purifying ability against Long Xie. After the fusion, the attack would have the same purifying ability. That was the only way to kill the million-year soul beast. In terms of attributes, the White Lotus and Bibidong's 2 extremely evil martial spirits were the most incompatible. Therefore, when the White Lotus appeared in Wang Feng's hand, Bibidong felt that Wang Wu must be crazy. You plan to use this to fuse with the martial soul fusion? Bibidong looked at the White Lotus in Wang Feng's hand in disbelief. She knew the ability of the White Lotus very well. It could purify evil from the root. It was this White Lotus that pulled Tang San and the others out of the Rakshasa's secret realm. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the nemesis of all evil in the world. At this moment, Bibidong was so close to Wang Wu that she could feel the 2 martial souls in her sea of consciousness sending out an extremely vigilant signal. Of course, Wang Feng said slowly. You, Bibidong shook her head. That's impossible. The compatibility between this White Lotus and my martial soul is almost 0. No, no, no. Wang Feng shook his head and said, Have you heard of yin and yang promoting and countering each other? Extreme evil and extreme purity are opposites, but in fact, neither can separate the other. For example, there is only shadow in this world when there is sunlight. When there is good, there is evil. When there is good, there will be bad. Everything in the world has no attribute. It's just that we think it's evil and pure. It's contaminated with different wills that there is such a division. In fact, it's mutually reinforcing. Hearing this, Bibidong was startled. Similarly, Wang Feng said slowly, You think that the compatibility between this and your martial soul is 0, but I think this is indeed the most compatible. It's precisely because of the opposition that they mutually reinforce each other. In fact, Wang Feng thought so. The Black Lotus seemed to be compatible with Bibidon's martial soul, but Wang Feng felt that the compatibility was at most 99%. But Wang Feng felt that the White Lotus was 100% compatible. Just 2 words, mutually reinforcing and countering each other. When 2 extremely repulsive energies, under the influence of humans, it was very likely to reach a subtle balance and even fuse into a brand new energy attribute, allowing the martial soul fusion technique to reach the maximum level. Bibidong was silent. Wang Feng's words seemed absurd. But there was some truth to it. Let's try it over there. Bibidon didn't hesitate this time. Wang Feng nodded slightly. Immediately, the primal chaos green lotus reappeared above Wang Feng's head. 7 dazzling soul rings rose into the air. All red soul rings. Bibidon took a look and was startled again. But she didn't hesitate. With the soul-devouring Spider Emperor as the target, 9 soul rings rose from her body at the same time. Although she had many soul rings, her aura was inferior to Wang Feng's 7 soul rings. Wang Feng's 7 soul rings added up to over 1,000,000 years. The soul-devouring Spider Emperor's projection appeared on Bibidon's body. After hesitating for a moment, Bibidon stretched out her hand. Wang Feng also hesitated for a moment and gently held it. In the next moment, the soul rings on their bodies began to tremble and rose from their bodies. P.S. It's 7 o'clock today. Good night, everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 872. A martial soul fusion skill required both of them to be fully focused. When their palms touched, their soul rings rose, and a special sense of connection appeared in their hearts. Wang Feng didn't feel anything from Bibidong's hand. He focused all his attention on his soul rings and his world-cleansing white lotus. His 9 soul rings and 7 red soul rings slowly overlapped, forming a pure golden halo that enveloped the two of them. A glowing white lotus floated out from Wang Feng's body. Under the golden halo, the white lotus shone even brighter. At the same time, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor behind Bibidon let out a sharp cry. Bibidon stared at Wang Feng. In the next moment, she disappeared from where she was. She seemed to have transformed into a real soul-devouring Spider Emperor and appeared in the void. As if it had received a response, the center of the white lotus released an intense pillar of light that penetrated the entire soul-devouring Spider Emperor. A sharp cry could be heard again. This cry seemed to contain a tinge of pain, but also a tinge of joy. Under this pillar of light, Wang Feng stared at the soul-devouring Spider Emperor. Right now, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor was like a Digimon that was undergoing a super evolution. Wang Feng could vaguely sense that there was a figure inside the soul-devouring Spider Emperor that was also experiencing this light. That figure closed his eyes and felt the strength of the white lotus. A majestic aura was born from this pillar of light. However, Long Xie could tell that something was amiss. Although he was also recovering from his injuries, he wasn't a fool. Any martial soul fusion skill required time. The first thing Long Xie did was attack Wang Feng and the other man. Wang Feng had already fused with his soul rings, so he couldn't release his chaotic green lotus true body. Most of his soul power surged into the white lotus, and fused with the soul-devouring Spider Emperor that Bibidon had transformed into. Without his martial soul true body, Wang Feng couldn't release his chaotic green lotus even if it had other forms. Wang Feng couldn't use his martial soul, so he couldn't move. Right now, Wang Feng could only use his spiritual power and the mysterious underworld flying sword. Shake! Wang Feng's soul power surged into the white lotus, causing it to shine brighter and brighter. The blinding light caused the pillar of light to shoot into the clouds. Wrapped in endless light, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's form underwent another huge change. Wang Feng's mouth emitted a deep sound. It was like an invisible sound wave that spread around Wang Feng. Although there was only the first note of the chaotic 8 notes, Wang Feng had not given up on the tremor note. He had been concentrating on comprehending it. The word tremble only caused the dragonblood evil dragon's body to tremble slightly. Without much obstruction, it continued to attack Wang Feng. Wang Feng knew that Long Xie's mental power wasn't weak at all. At the same time, Long Xie didn't use any energy attacks because he knew that once he did, he'd be killed. In that case, his energy attack would most likely have no effect on the pillar of light emitted by the White Lotus. It might even be directly purified. Thus, the evil dragon swung its 10-meter-long tail at Wang Feng, emitting a metallic luster. After the dragon's scales reattached to his body, It would take a long time before he could use the god-binding scale cage. However, the scale cage on his tail was also as cold as a blade. Wang Feng frowned slightly as he stood motionless in the air. All of the Xian Ming spikes formed into a 10-meter-long sword. The sword slashed down. Boom! There was a violent explosion in the air, and the Xian Ming flying sword was instantly destroyed. Even Wang Feng's mental power was shaken, and he grunted. Fortunately, the White Lotus seemed to be just as he thought. Although it seemed like the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's attributes were incompatible, they were actually compatible. They just needed some time to merge. Due to their compatibility, Wang Feng was able to divert some of his mental power to control the Xian Ming flying sword to block the evil dragon's attack. Although the Netherism flying sword was blasted apart, countless Netherism spikes swiftly formed into a large shield at the first possible moment, and it blocked before Wang Feng. The evil dragon's body was huge. After it destroyed the Xian Ming flying sword, it immediately swung its claws at the Xian Ming shield. Bang! A crisp sound was heard. The evil dragon's body shook. He could only feel a huge force rebounding from the Xianming shield. It directly sent him flying backwards. However, the Xianming shield was destroyed again. Wang Feng's mental power was shaken again, and his consciousness became empty. The Xianming shield formed by the Xianming spikes had the rebound ability of the external soul bone. At the same time, it had the ability to weaken the opponent's defense. However, the evil dragon's body was immune to all kinds of effects, and it wasn't affected by this ability. The rebound made the evil dragon very uncomfortable. This was because it was a pure attack, and it was most afraid of such a rebound. This human's defense is also ridiculously strong. It's only slightly weaker than mine. The evil dragon stared at Wang Feng. He knew that he wouldn't be able to defeat the evil dragon in a short period of time if he used pure strength. It's time to show my strength, the evil dragon shouted. Human, you're lucky to have forced me to use this move. I'll show you 999% of my strength. Wang Feng was speechless. In the next moment, the evil dragon stopped in midair. The dragon's scales on his body started to shine brightly, as if they were absorbing some kind of energy. There were several patterns on his body that extended all the way to his head. Then, Wang Feng saw the blood-red spots in the sky surging toward the evil dragon from afar. It was as if the evil dragon had become a giant vacuum cleaner, absorbing the blood-red energy. Wang Feng frowned slightly. This energy gave Wang Feng a very special feeling. It was a little similar to when Little Three pulled out the sea god's trident in the sea god's palace. The golden power of faith generated by countless ocean creatures fused into the sea god's trident. The difference was that this blood-red energy was extremely pure evil thoughts. Wang Feng's spirit shook slightly when he touched the blood-red spots. It was as if he could sense the special evil thoughts of some soul beasts through these spots of blood-red light. Could he be absorbing the evil thoughts of the soul beasts in the great star Do forest? Wang Feng muttered to himself. The evil dragon's identity seems to be quite special. The blood-red spots in the sky were like a dense rainstorm. They rained down from the sky, but they only landed on the evil dragon. The evil dragon looked like a funnel right now. How many soul beasts were there in the great star Do forest? Wang Feng wasn't sure, but there were definitely a lot of them. If the evil dragon could absorb the evil thoughts of soul beasts, it meant that the evil dragon was very special. He was a little curious about the evil dragon's background. Countless spots of blood-red light fused into the evil dragon's body through the dragon's scales. The evil dragon's aura was gradually increasing. The evil dragon's size was also increasing. 300 meters, 400 meters, until 1,000 meters. Roar. The evil dragon let out a deafening roar. Even from afar, the evil dragon looked like a giant dragon that connected the heavens and the earth. If we were anywhere else, I might not be able to do anything to you, human. But in this forest, you won't be able to defeat me in this lifetime or even the next. End of chapter. Chapter 873. Long Xie's body grew to 3 times its original size. He was now unimaginably huge. In the next moment, he opened his mouth, which seemed to be able to swallow the sky. A blinding blood-red ball of light was formed. It was directed at Wang Feng. However, this ball of light seemed to need to be condensed, which was why it was so condensed. He needed to condense his energy to the extreme so that the white flower couldn't be purified. He needed to crush his opponent with his strength. This move required a long time to accumulate energy, and it could be easily interrupted. Long Xie didn't use it easily. However, his opponent was using a special skill now. He could use this move too. Ultimate Evil Annihilation. Long Xie had given it a name that he thought was pretty good since it was his own creation. Boundless blood-red light enveloped the sky. The entire sky was dyed a faint blood-red color. The energy that seemed to be able to destroy the universe caused the ground to tremble, and the sky to become deathly silent. Wang Feng muttered to himself. No one knew what he was thinking. In the next instant, the light from the White Lotus suddenly disappeared. The White Lotus dispersed and fused into the soul-devouring Spider Emperor that was still being nurtured in the white light. It was like a blacksmith forging a divine weapon. When the White Lotus fused into the furnace, the entire white cocoon instantly cracked open. A bright golden soul ring formed by 16 soul rings rose from the white cocoon. Wang Feng seemed to be guided by a force. He leaped lightly and arrived in front of the white cocoon. The cocoon shattered, and the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's ultimate form was finally revealed. Wang Feng's pupils shrank as he looked at the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's true body. Its originally blackish-green body had turned pure black. However, there were countless white patterns on its body. Its originally ferocious body had also undergone huge changes. As the white patterns fused, it was less than 100 meters tall. Its 6 spider legs shone with a steel-like glow. Its eyes were like black and white magatama that intersected to form a strange Taiji diagram. They seemed to repel and fuse at the same time. Its entire body was covered in crystal-like black and white armor. Following this, Wang Feng landed on the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's head under the guidance of a force. As he was too big, Wang Feng seemed very small as he stepped on the white patterns. The armor was as pure as crystal, and he didn't feel disgusted by it at all. Under the 2 colors of black and white there was a strange sense of beauty. An unparalleled aura rose from the soul-devouring Spider Emperor, an aura that surpassed that of a demigod. Wang Feng was sure that there was only one golden soul ring on this soul-devouring Spider Emperor. However, Wang Feng could feel that the aura he emitted was extraordinary. This was a martial soul fusion at the demigod level. Even though Wang Feng's soul power rank hadn't reached, Bibidan was definitely above rank 99. Furthermore, a portion of the soul power in her body had already been transformed into a portion of divine power. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for her to display such a powerful divine skill. Wang Feng also discovered that behind the soul-devouring Spider Emperor, there were actually 7 scythes similar to the Rakshasa demon scythe. One of my soul bones shattered. Apart from the external soul bone, the other 5 soul bones have miraculously fused together. A spiritual thought was transmitted into Wang Feng's mind. It was Bibidan's mental transmission. Surprisingly, they fused together. This meant that this was already considered a demigod's equipment. One had to know that it was already incredible for someone who hadn't completely passed the 9th test to be able to do this. Just as you think, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor was very repulsed when it fused with the Rakshasa demon scythe. However, it obediently fused with the power of your White Lotus. My soul power and a portion of my divine power have even transformed into a special type of energy. Bibidan looked at Long Xie. At the same time, I can change into 2 forms. This is the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's form, and my original form. Wang Feng nodded. The soul-devouring Spider Emperor's form has a powerful soul skill. It can deal with this soul beast. Right at this moment, the blood-red ball of light in Long Xie's mouth had finished forming. Wang Feng looked at the blood-red ball of light that was at least 100 meters in diameter. It contained explosive energy. Roar! Long Xie roared from its chest. It spat at the soul-devouring Spider Emperor that had just fused with the Rakshasa demon scythe. The extremely powerful energy caused the space around it to distort. Right at this moment, Bibidon moved. The white patterns on her back twisted and wriggled. They instantly formed a huge picture of a white lotus. However, the strange thing was that half of the white lotus was purplish-black. Two different types of energy fused in the center of the white lotus. Wang Feng was shocked when he sensed the fusion. The fused energy was probably even more powerful than the power of faith. It wasn't any weaker than true divine power. In other words, Bibidon wasn't a god yet. However, she already possessed a portion of a god's strength. In the next moment, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor let out a low cry. Its body started to tremble. Wang Feng's mind was connected to Bibidong, who was in the form of the soul-devouring Spider Emperor. Naturally, he knew that she was using the strongest soul skill of the soul-devouring Spider Emperor. Myriad Origin Coalescence / of the Cleansing Lotus. The name of the soul skill might appear automatically the moment it was created. It wasn't Bibidon's name. Otherwise, the name would be too long. Following that, the 7 to 8 demonic scythes on the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's back merged into one and pierced through the white lotus. It formed a 100-meter-long energy scythe, with one side as black as a demon and one side as bright as day. The two different types of energy fused on this demonic scythe. It seemed to cause the surrounding space to collapse. The world seemed to fall into nothingness. In an instant, this black and white demonic scythe pierced through the clouds and shattered the void. It collided with the huge blood-colored ball of light. Wang Feng felt that even if he used invincibility, it might be broken if he was in his best state. This was a power that surpassed the demigod rank. In this world, only true gods could withstand this attack. But at the same time, that blood-colored ball of light wasn't simple. At least from Wang Feng's perception, this evil dragon had accumulated power for such a long time. Its power was also above the demigod rank. It had reached the limit. Even if Wang Feng used Panga's axe and activated explosive blood, its power wouldn't be stronger than these two moves. Thinking of this, Wang Feng couldn't help but ponder. The power of a true god should be stronger, right? This move consumed a lot of energy. Almost at the same time, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor turned into countless streaks of light and gradually turned into a human figure. At the same time, it was as if the entire world had been destroyed. A ray of light that could annihilate everything shot out from the sky. The demonic scythe cut open the blood-colored ball of light and slashed towards the evil dragon. However, the blood-colored ball of light wasn't that simple. It turned into countless blood arrows and shot towards Wang Feng. Every blood arrow contained an explosive power. Wang Feng didn't have time to look at the Bibidon that had turned into a human figure after the martial soul fusion. He used what little spiritual power he had left to control the mysterious underworld spike to erect a green shield that was more than 10 meters tall. The moment the blood arrows hit the green shield, Wang Feng's expression changed. The continuous explosions instantly turned all of the dark nether spikes into dust. Even though the blood-colored ball of light was split in half by the demonic scythe, its power didn't seem to be reduced by much. This was the first time that the mysterious underworld spike, which was an external soul bone, had been destroyed. End of chapter. Chapter 874. The external attachment soul bone was closely related to Wang Feng. Even though the mysterious underworld spike's many forms had been shattered, it had never been truly shattered. However, it was completely shattered this time. It would take a very long time for it to be reborn. At this moment, a white light suddenly rose from Bibidon, who was behind Wang Feng. The moment the green shield was blown to pieces, the white light blocked in front of Wang Feng's body. The white light was like a light barrier that enveloped the two of them. The dense blood arrows were instantly purified and devoured when they hit the light barrier. "You're right." Bibidon's voice sounded softly. It seemed that after the martial soul fusion, her voice had changed greatly. Although she was still cold and noble, there was a hint of clarity and gentleness. However, her aura, combined with the world-cleansing white lotus, made her seem like an otherworldly goddess. She had a pure and holy beauty. Only her pitch-black eyes exuded an evil aura that was completely different from her aura. The two types of repulsive energy fused into one, forming two different auras that gave off an extremely strange feeling. However, her charm had increased by several times. Her appearance had reached a peak. In particular, her white and flawless face seemed to emit a holy light. It was very contradictory with her pitch-black, evil eyes. However, it was precisely this sort of contradiction that gave rise to endless evil thoughts in one's heart with a single glance. Wang Feng took a few glances. Other than that, she was also covered in a black and white armor. It was a demigod armor, but it was a pity that she didn't have a torso bone. As a result, her lower abdomen and neck were covered in the Pope's platinum robes. Her long hair, which had been messy because of the previous battle, was now as smooth as a waterfall. The crown on her head was still there. There was only a sickle mark between her eyebrows, but now there was a white lotus below the sickle. At this moment, this white lotus was emitting white halos that formed a light barrier that blocked the blood arrows outside. The power of my soul-devouring Spider Emperor and this white lotus after fusing together has brought me infinitely close to the deity level. If not for the fact that I shattered my most important torso bone just now, I could even temporarily form a special deity equipment. Bibidon's pitch-black eyes looked at Wang Feng with an evil aura. There was a rare hint of excitement in his voice as he said, that soul skill of the soul-devouring Spider Emperor's form might have even reached the god tier. However, it consumed a lot of energy. Bibidon's face was slightly pale, but his aura was still relatively calm. Because of their martial souls, this martial soul fusion skill was more like Wang Feng giving his strength to Bibidon. It was not a true fusion of the two of them. This was because the white lotus was merely a form of the chaotic green lotus, and it was only a tool martial soul. But it was enough. "How's the consumption?" Wang Feng withdrew his gaze and asked seriously. "These blood arrows will be very troublesome." "I don't know," Bibidon frowned slightly. "I'm missing a piece of my soul bone. My strength was incomplete before I fused with it. If not for your white lotus being somewhat special and being able to purify these attacks, we might not have been able to withstand them." Cough cough, after he finished speaking, Bibidon coughed twice, and the white lotus between his eyebrows flickered. At this moment, Long Xie suddenly let out a roar of extreme pain. The evil dragon had just spat out a blood-red ball of light, and it was already in a weakened state. The blood-red ball was sliced in half, and it was unable to resist the demon side's attack. It was sliced in half at the waist. The blood-red body of the evil dragon was 1,000 meters long, and it let out an enraged roar. Countless tough dragon scales were sliced in half in an instant. Wang Feng and Bibidon heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. If their martial soul fusion skill could not kill this million-year soul beast, then they would be out of options. However, it was also at this moment. Bibidon groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. The white barrier around him was instantly destroyed. Countless blood arrows shot towards the two of them at this moment. The white lotus did not have a soul ring. Although it was powerful, it could purify these attacks. However, Bibidon had consumed a lot of energy to unleash that attack. There was no way he could completely block this attack. At this critical moment, Wang Feng shouted. Blood patterns flashed all over his body, and he forcefully used his dark angel martial soul to pull Bibidon behind him. One had to know that he had gathered all his soul power into the white lotus for Bibidon to fuse with. Even so, he was unable to use the other forms of the chaotic green lotus. This was because he did not have a soul ring. Before Bibidon's martial soul fusion skill disappeared, he could not use the other forms of the chaotic green lotus. He did not have much soul power left, so he could only use his dark angel martial soul. He activated the power of his blood patterns. Countless blood arrows pierced Wang Feng's body at this moment. The strength of a million-year soul beast was not as simple as Wang Feng had thought. Without a true god to block it, the evil dragon's terrifying attack could even kill a demigod. At this moment, Wang Feng suddenly thought of the deep-sea demon whale. The deep-sea demon whale's strength was not as simple as he had thought. This was because the deep-sea demon whale was not truly fighting with its life on the line. The evil dragon's attack was a move that risked its life on the line. If the deep-sea demon whale had used a similar move, Wang Feng would have died if no true god had protected him with the heavy silver pillar. Fortunately, the deep-sea demon whale did not think that Wang Feng was that strong. It did not use such a terrifying move. Countless blood arrows pierced through Wang Feng's body. However, the blood patterns on Wang Feng's body and the black wings on his back shone with dazzling light. They absorbed part of the strength of the arrows. However, the strength of the blood arrows could not be completely absorbed. Such a powerful move almost pierced through Wang Feng's back. Blood flowed out. Many blood arrows even pierced Wang Feng's heart. However, they were blocked by the meteoric tear. Fortunately, Wang Feng's soul bones were not ordinary. Although his Xianming armor was shattered, he still had his torso bones. His left and right leg bones, which were 500,000 years old, were unleashed with great strength. They barely managed to block the blood arrows. Bibidon, who was being pulled behind Wang Feng, was stunned. Its pupils shrank, and its body shone with an intense light. When it came to its senses, it immediately pulled Wang Feng behind it. The soul bones on its body shone with intense light, and it screamed like thunder. Ci. In comparison, Bibidon's soul bones were not as strong as Wang Feng's soul bones. Furthermore, her body was not as strong as Wang Feng's body, which had been tempered by the red lotus and the chaotic divine light. However, the only good thing was that Bibidon was in a martial soul fusion state. Bibidon's body was also pierced by the blood arrows. Her face turned slightly red. After a while, the blood arrows were destroyed by the light barrier formed by the white lotus and the combined strength of the two of them. However, the two of them were covered in blood. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were on their last breath. Wang Feng's face was pale. The attack that he had suffered was stronger. However, his body was stronger. Hence, he looked better than Bibidon. In addition, the blood patterns had absorbed part of the strength. He could still stand in the void, but he was on the verge of collapse. However, half of the 14 pairs of light wings on his back had been pierced through. End of chapter. Chapter 875. In comparison, Bibidon's injuries were more severe. Fortunately, she was in the martial soul fusion state, and her body contained the power of the white lotus. Part of the blood arrow was purified when it pierced her body. The soul-devouring Spider Emperor was also a martial soul of evil energy. It was very resistant to the evil aura of the blood arrow. "How are you?" Wang Feng looked at Bibidon. He didn't dare to withdraw the white lotus and deactivate the martial soul fusion state. Once he deactivated it, Bibidon would lose the white lotus, and her injuries would be even more severe. I'm fine," Bibidon panted heavily. She felt the world spinning around her. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to withstand the attack just now. However, the two of them managed to withstand it. Wang Feng used the secret character and the meteoric tear. His injuries were recovering at a visible rate. In the next instant, Bibidan's body trembled. The blood arrow wasn't just harmful to her body. She was severely injured. Her consciousness blurred, and she fell. Her initial attack had drained too much of her energy. Seeing this, Wang Feng quickly grabbed Bibidan's shoulder and slowly lowered Bibidan to the ground. He put her down slowly. Under the momentum of the battle just now, the surrounding area was almost completely flattened. At this moment, Long Xie had been split in two. He also fell to the ground. They were like two small mountains. It was a horrifying sight. We won in the end, Wang Feng muttered. Both of them were severely injured. He was glad that he didn't use the penguax. If he had, Long Xie might not have died, but he would have. Wang Feng was a little hesitant as he looked at Bibidan, who was covered in blood. Bibidan's injuries were more severe than his. Her injuries were much more severe, and she was much weaker. He didn't have much soul power in his body. It would be very difficult to heal her. The only way was to condense his own essence blood. One had to know that the essence blood in his body was a great supplement and was incomparably pure. I can't waste it. Wang Feng looked at the blood flowing out of his body. He clenched his hand, and the blood was quickly sucked into his palm. It formed a bright drop of blood. In any case, it would be a pity to waste the blood that had flowed out. Wang Feng had the esoteric character and the meteoric tear, so his injuries recovered very quickly. Unless someone could kill him instantly. Otherwise, he would be immortal. Strands of light gathered in Wang Feng's palm. Then, he dripped the drop of blood into Bibidan's mouth. In the next moment, Bibidan's body shook, and his face flushed slightly. This drop of blood contained an extremely heterogeneous energy. One had to know that Wang Feng's blood had all gone through the meteoric tear and contained a portion of the meteoric tear's energy. The moment she swallowed it, a small amount of energy exploded in Bibidan's mouth and entered her body. After a few breaths, Bibidan opened his eyes and looked at Wang Feng with a complicated expression. "Does it smell good?" Wang Feng looked at her and asked in a relaxed manner, "I don't know how many soul beasts are craving my blood. Today, I'll make use of it and let you benefit from it." Bibidan. She glared at Wang Feng. At this time, he was still in the mood to say such things? But it still smelled good. Unlike the fishy smell, the other party's blood contained an extremely pure energy. No wonder his body was so strong and exuded such a pure aura. Special constitution. With the help of Wang Feng's blood, Bibidan recovered a little, and her aura gradually calmed down. But the two of them were still very weak. Bibidan lay on the ground and looked at the hazy sky, lost in thought for a moment. It had been a long time since she had experienced such a battle. It felt incredible. "Let me know when you've recovered, so that I can retrieve the White Lotus." Wang Feng glanced at Bibidan. Just now, the blood arrow pierced through her body, and there were many bloody holes. Blood stained her tattered robe. But at this time, her body was slowly recovering. Bibidan nodded slightly. She still had to rely on the White Lotus to suppress the injuries caused by the blood arrow in her body, to purify the evil thoughts that invaded her consciousness. After a moment, Wang Feng stood up first, and his aura gradually condensed. With the help of the meteoric tear and the esoteric character, he had recovered. "Wang Wu, help me up. Let's take a look at that soul beast," Bibidan whispered. Wang Feng nodded slightly, and put his arm around Bibidan's shoulder to support her. Bibidan also put one hand on Wang Feng's shoulder, and it looked like the two of them were leaning against each other. At this moment, 4 figures quickly appeared in front of the two of them. They were Guizhu, Qianjun, and the Demon Vanquisher. When the battle erupted, they didn't want to participate at all. It was too terrifying. Even the rank 96 Qianjun and the Demon Vanquisher couldn't have survived such a battle. The Dragon Evil's tail could probably cripple the two of them. The 4 of them looked at the Pope and Pope Diff leaning against each other intimately, and they remained silent, as if they didn't see anything. Your Majesty, Pope Diff, do you want us to take a look at that soul beast's corpse? Douluo looked into the distance. This was the first time the titled Douluo had encountered such a powerful soul beast. The terrifying battle just now could be said to have broadened their horizons. Let's go take a look. Bibidon waved her hand and said, Be careful. That's a million-year soul beast. Guard it well. Seeing this, the four titled Douluo quickly walked over to the evil dragon that had been sliced in half. However, Wang Feng frowned slightly. Something's wrong. What's wrong? Bibidon asked. This soul beast isn't dead. Wang Feng looked into the distance with a cold look in his eyes. Bibidon was stunned when she heard this. I must be confused. If the dragon evil is dead, why isn't there a soul ring? Wang Feng stared into the distance and suddenly shouted, Wait, don't go over. Just as he said that, a violent explosion erupted. An intense wave of blood-red light erupted in the distance, and the four titled Douluo were sent flying like kites that had their strings cut. They spat out mouthfuls of blood. A weak but proud voice could be heard. Ha ha ha, you didn't expect this, did you? I'm not dead. It's a pity that you didn't finish me off personally. Otherwise, the two of you would have died. I'm immortal. Other than gods, you humans can't kill me. In the distance, the dragon evil's human form rose from the soul beast's corpse. It looked like a ball of blood-red mist. It looked weak, but it was very strange. How is this possible? Bibidon was stunned as he looked at Wang Feng. He tightened his grip on Wang Feng's shoulder. I think I know how this soul beast came to be. Wang Feng recalled the soul beast's attack, and his eyes shone with a strange light. Don't worry, I have a way. As he spoke, Wang Feng patted Bibidon's hand. Bibidon was stunned. He calmed down a little and loosened his grip a little. P.S. How many more chapters? End of chapter. Chapter 876. Wang Feng supported Bibidon as they walked forward. Long Xie's body was huge. Even though it had been cut in half by the demonic scythe, it was still wriggling crazily. The enormous amount of energy and life force within its body was on full display. It was like a mountain was wriggling. It was a terrifying sight. The four titled Douluo stumbled as they crawled to their feet. They were horrified as they watched. How strong was this soul beast? How could the shock waves from its death wound them so easily? The chrysanthemum Douluo, who was slightly weaker, almost stopped breathing. Fortunately, Wang Feng had warned them quickly. They managed to use their soul power to resist the attack. Otherwise, they would have been in a worse situation. Long Xie was shrouded in layers of bloody mist. Countless spots of blood-red energy were flying around him. Even though it wasn't as powerful as before, it was still able to make use of the countless spots of blood-red light to make his body more and more tangible. Human, even though I didn't use my full strength, Long Xie looked at the two of them proudly. But apart from the two of you, there's no third person in this world who can force me to this point. Unfortunately, you're only humans. You're not gods. That attack just now was only close to God tier. However, it wasn't really there. You can't kill me. Long Xie laughed as it said that. If I had used 99% of my strength, you would have lost. Wang Feng, Bibidon, you're such a fool. Wang Fengxin couldn't help but curse. However, Wang Feng looked at Long Xie and said slowly, You're 99% of your strength should be related to all the soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest, right? Bibidon was stunned when he heard that. What did that mean? Bibidon felt that this soul beast was just spouting nonsense about having a strength of 999 out of 1,000. It liked to pretend. That was why it said such meaningless things. Just from that move, the other party's strength must have reached the limit. Long Xie looked at Wang Feng in surprise. Human, it seems your intelligence is second only to mine. However, Wang Feng merely smiled. In the beginning, Wang Feng also thought that the other party was bragging, which was why he said such words. But after thinking about it, that didn't seem to be the case completely. There really was such a possibility. Apart from your own cultivation, the foundation of your strength lies in your own cultivation. Most of it came from absorbing the evil thoughts of all the soul beasts in the great star Do forest. Wang Feng said slowly, the path of cultivation has always been bumpy. On the road to the top, we humans will encounter countless setbacks. Countless evil thoughts and inner demons will appear in our minds, obstructing our path of cultivation. It's the same for soul beasts. Any soul beast can cultivate for a longer time than us humans, so they'll have more evil thoughts. It can be said that almost all the soul beasts in the great star Do forest have countless evil thoughts at all times. Clan conflicts, life and death battles, territorial disputes, reproduction, and so on. You, on the other hand, were born by absorbing these evil thoughts. No, I should say that these evil thoughts are automatically absorbed. Once they're born, you can absorb them. As long as there are soul beasts, you'll have evil thoughts, and you won't truly die. Even if you're reduced to a wisp of consciousness, you can still be reborn. Wang Feng said one sentence after another. Long Xie was silent for a moment after he finished speaking. Bibidon was also silent for a moment, but his heart was in turmoil. If that was the case, it was impossible to kill this million-year soul beast. Unless they killed all the soul beasts in the great star Do forest? Even so, there were other forests that possessed soul beasts besides the great star Do forest. In fact, from the perspective of life, soul beasts also had their own social structure, but it was much more backward than humans. Furthermore, soul beasts didn't have a true leader right now. How can there be such a soul beast? Bibidon was in disbelief. If he could absorb evil thoughts to cultivate, this wouldn't be a big deal. No matter what evil thoughts were, they were all emotions. Wang Feng's original sin's domain could absorb all kinds of emotions. Bibidon had inherited the godhood, and his Rakshasa domain could also absorb all kinds of evil thoughts to replenish his divine power and weaken him at the same time. However, it was unbelievable that he could be born from evil thoughts. You shouldn't exist in this world. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie and recalled what had happened. A few years ago, you were facing a bottleneck and the heavenly tribulation was coming. At that time, your aura was rioting and you wanted to calm down. Since you've absorbed the evil intent, you need a neutral and peaceful soul beast to counteract and slow down the boundless evil intent energy in your body. As for the two great lights, that is, the sky-pressing azure bull python and the titan giant ape, they became the targets of your subordinate. Furthermore, the sky azure bull python has the bloodline of the azure dragon, and it has very few evil thoughts. Its blood can neutralize some of the evil thoughts in your body. You were afraid that you wouldn't be able to survive the heavenly tribulation, but you failed. You should have died under the heavenly tribulation. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie and said indifferently, you shouldn't exist in this world. However, a few days ago, you survived the heavenly tribulation and became a million-year soul beast. At that time, did another voice appear in your head and help you? Long Xie couldn't help but look shocked when he heard this. Long Xie looked at Wang Feng and was truly shocked for the first time. How did you know? How did you know so much about this human? Impossible. It was too strange. Even a god couldn't know this, could he? Especially the last sentence? Long Xie's heart was filled with shock. He had indeed survived the heavenly tribulation because of this. The mysterious voice in his head, of course, Wang Feng knew. It had to be the system's doing. Under normal circumstances, Long Xie should have been struck to death by the heavenly tribulation. He might have even been struck to death a long time ago. This guy didn't appear in the original work. However, his appearance in the Douluo world had affected the world's development and caused great changes. It wasn't just humans. It was the same for soul beasts. Not to mention others, Wang Feng's 4 underlings had brought great changes to the world of soul beasts. Later, with the help of the system, he survived the heavenly tribulation. Wang Feng finally knew why the system wanted him to find this million-year soul beast. Long Xie wasn't created by the system. Long Xie existed in the first place, but it hadn't been a million-year soul beast before. Bibidan also looked at Wang Feng in shock. How did he know this soul beast so well? End of chapter. Chapter 877. Of course I know. Wang Feng guffawed. He had even guessed Long Xie's origin. An evil-type soul beast couldn't survive by relying on the evil thoughts of all soul beasts. It wasn't impossible for soul beasts to absorb and cultivate. However, it wasn't normal for a soul beast to survive by relying on evil thoughts. From this point of view, how were soul beasts born? Combined with Long Xie's dragon body and the fact that he knew Di Tian, his tone was extremely arrogant. However, Wang Feng felt that Long Xie was stronger than Di Tian. He even said that only a true god could kill him. Based on all of that, Long Xie was most likely the product of a true god. As for what god? Wang Feng didn't know much about true gods. However, Long Xie was like a villain in a game that Wang Feng remembered from his previous life. The evil sword immortal was an evil thought created by someone else. He was a living being created by someone else. However, Long Xie was stronger. It was because of his unique way of survival. There was no limit to his strength. In other words, the more evil thoughts the soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest produced, the more evil thoughts they had. The more power they could unleash, the stronger they were. 9/10, 99%, and 9/10 of 1,000. That was the logic. Although he was bragging, that was what it meant. So what if you know? Long Xie sneered. I don't mind telling you that I can invade any soul beast's body and continue living. The heavenly tribulation didn't destroy me, so nothing in this world can destroy me. Unless you're a true god, you have to be a true god to destroy me. You have to be a powerful true god. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie. Bibidan was also silent. Both of them were recovering from their injuries. They couldn't even unleash the strength of a demigod, let alone a true god. Long Xie had said that many times. Wang Feng smiled and said, Did you forget something? What? Long Xie looked at him. Wang Feng looked at Bibidan and pointed at Bibidan's forehead. Suddenly, a white lotus flower was pulled out of Bibidan's body. In the next moment, Bibidan's body went limp. His injuries worsened. His entire body also began to undergo drastic changes. Once the martial soul fusion state was lost, without the white lotus purification suppression, Bibidan's evil thoughts from the blood arrow piercing her body almost instantly invaded her mind. At the same time, the injuries on her body rapidly worsened. The golden soul rings on Bibidan's body suddenly dispersed, transforming into 16 soul rings that landed on the two of them. Bibidan had just absorbed a drop of Wang Feng's blood essence, so even though he was injured, he wasn't in danger. Bibidan snorted and glanced at Wang Feng. He frowned and snorted. If you want to take it out, tell me in advance. Wang Feng coughed a few times and nodded. He was a little anxious just now. The injuries on his body were gradually recovering. Under the effect of the human secret character, he was able to activate the meteoric tear. Therefore, the speed of his recovery was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. As long as it wasn't like the last time, where his heart was destroyed in an extremely weak state, he could basically recover very quickly. Bibidan looked at Wang Feng, whose injuries had already scabbed over, and a look of surprise flashed across her eyes. She was well aware of how severe the injuries caused by the blood arrow were. If it were her, she would need at least 10 days to half a month to recover. However, Wang Feng's drop of blood was indeed extraordinary. It allowed her to recover a little. But who would have thought that in less than a few minutes, his injuries had almost fully recovered? Monster. Bibidan thought to herself. No wonder Shrek's people called him Monster Captain. What are you doing? I'm not afraid even if you use this little white flower. Long Xie looked at the white lotus and said sternly. However, it sounded like he was trying to put on a strong front. It's impossible for you to kill me with just this little white flower. Long Xie laughed coldly. I won't be able to kill you in a short time. Wang Feng smiled. Under the effects of the human secret character and the meteoric tear, not only did his injuries recover by more than half, but he also recovered some of his soul power. The sum of the two was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. He gently activated the white lotus. Long Xie was still floating in the air. He wasn't afraid at all. Although he couldn't escape without a body, he wasn't afraid. The white lotus could only suppress him. It couldn't kill him. One had to know that he was born. Go! Wang Feng locked onto Long Xie and shouted. In the next instant, the white lotus flew back to Long Xie. It instantly flew under Long Xie's blood-red light. Then, the white lotus released streaks of white light that enveloped Long Xie. However, it only enveloped him. It didn't purify him immediately. When the white light came into contact with Long Xie's blood mist, a sizzling sound was heard. Strands of white mist came out from the white light. Long Xie's expression changed. A ring of blood-red light rose from his body and enveloped him. It resisted the white mist that only Long Xie could use. I told you that you can't kill me. Long Xie looked at the white lotus and said, You're a strange human. Your abilities are strange, but your white lotus doesn't have a soul ring. It's only in its basic form. It's not enough to kill me. Wang Feng was aware of that. The white lotus didn't have a soul ring yet. It was just that it couldn't unleash its full power yet. Is that so? Wang Feng laughed. Why don't you try absorbing the evil intent again? Although the white lotus can't completely purify you, it can prevent you from absorbing the evil intent. In other words, you won't be able to recover. You'll only die a slow death in my white lotus. Of course, it might take some time. Half a month? A year? You'll be gone when the time comes. Wang Feng couldn't purify Long Xie's evil intent immediately because he couldn't use the white lotus. After all, Long Xie was a million-year soul beast. The evil intent it cultivated was very powerful. However, it could prevent Long Xie from absorbing the evil intent. It couldn't become stronger, and it couldn't escape. It could only die a slow death. However, Wang Feng couldn't use the white lotus during this period. He couldn't even add a soul ring. Otherwise, Long Xie could recover, and everything would be for naught. Long Xie's expression changed when he heard that. This was what he was most worried about. The light from the white lotus blocked all evil intent. He couldn't leave, and he couldn't absorb the evil intent to recover. Long Xie fell silent. But there's no point in doing that. Bibidon walked over and whispered. Wang Feng knew what Bibidon meant. He could kill Long Xie by doing that, but he wouldn't be able to obtain his soul ring. Long Xie's body was destroyed, but it was only a body. Long Xie wasn't truly dead. End of chapter. Chapter 878. He might not even get a soul bone from it. Wang Feng was going to wear Long Xie down for a long time. Long Xie's body would eventually rot. Without Long Xie's own will entering his body, everything would be meaningless. Apart from that, Wang Feng couldn't absorb Long Xie as long as he didn't form soul rings. How could a soul beast of such a level submit so easily? Wang Feng wasn't a true god, so he couldn't kill Long Xie immediately. If this continued, perhaps Long Xie would be scared out of his wits. Even if he gave in the end, the quality of his soul rings would drop as he was relying on his cultivation of evil thoughts to resist the purification ability of the white lotus. The longer he resisted, the lower his cultivation would be, and his cultivation would affect his soul rings. In the end, his cultivation would be gone, and he wouldn't be able to absorb Long Xie's evil thoughts. Even if he didn't die, the quality of his soul rings would drop as time passed. If that happened, this battle would be for naught. Wang Feng wasn't that kind of person. He smiled at Long Xie and said, "I'll give you a chance to live." Long Xie looked at Wang Feng and said, "Human. Do you want me to sacrifice myself to you, human?" Wang Fengxin thought to himself, Long Xie's acting is smart. However, it seems like it's impossible to get a soul beast of such a level to sacrifice himself to me. Bibidon didn't think it was possible either. How could a million-year soul beast sacrifice its pride to a human? Bibidon didn't think it would sacrifice itself to a human even if it died. Furthermore, it was a human who had beaten it to such a state. What kind of soul beast do you think I am? As expected, Long Xie looked at Wang Feng haughtily. Do you think I, Long Xie, would sacrifice myself to a human just to survive? Am I a soul beast that lives without purpose? I've lived for so long, and I have my own pride. I won't sacrifice myself to a human. It sounded very determined and arrogant. Bibidon shook its head when it heard that. Wang Feng's idea was good, but it was too far-fetched. However, at this moment, Wang Feng suddenly waved his hand and interrupted Long Xie. "Cut the crap. What are your conditions?" "As long as you agree to 2 of my conditions, I'll sacrifice myself to you," Long Xie said. Bibidon gaped at Long Xie. "Isn't this answer a little too fast?" Wang Feng chuckled. He had more or less figured out Long Xie's personality. Long Xie was proud. However, his heart was filled with more evil thoughts and unwillingness. Long Xie's background. Long Xie probably didn't want to die. With great difficulty, he managed to survive the heavenly tribulation. How could he possibly want to die like this? "No problem," Wang Feng replied. "Aren't you going to ask what my conditions are?" Long Xie glared at Wang Feng. "Are you that arrogant, human?" "Then what are your conditions?" Wang Feng asked. Long Xie snorted. "Human, I'm not just offering you a condition. Although I used my full strength, you were able to defeat me. You have 9,999% of your potential. That's enough to prove your potential." "I see your potential." He was telling the truth. Long Xie didn't want to die. He barely survived. How could he die like this? This human is amazing. He knows so much about me. It's unbelievable. More importantly, his potential is limitless. A rank 80 soul master was actually able to exchange blows with him? Even with his knowledge, he was shocked. He was looking forward to it. Just how far would this human go? "Alright, cut the crap." Wang Feng frowned. "Hurry up if you want to sacrifice yourself." Sacrifice was different from absorption. He could absorb Long Xie's soul ring perfectly and fuse with it. He could also absorb it slowly as his soul power increased. That way, his soul power would increase faster. Soul bones and soul skills were secondary. "What's the hurry?" Long Xie asked. "If I become your soul ring, how can you be sure that you won't absorb my soul? Do you think my noble soul will absorb your filthy and evil soul?" Wang Feng scoffed. "I don't want it even if you give it to me. If you have nothing else to do, just stay in your soul ring. Behave yourself." Long Xie was speechless. Long Xie couldn't help but look at this human. He had never lost to anyone in certain aspects. This human seemed to be the same kind of person as him. "No, I don't believe you." Long Xie pondered for a moment. "That's simple. Split a strand of your evil soul and I'll let it enter my sea of consciousness. If I dare to absorb your soul, you can use your evil soul to attack my soul. You'll be able to injure me severely," Wang Feng suddenly said. "At the same time, you have to let part of the White Lotus enter your evil soul in exchange for control. What do you think?" "That's a good idea." Long Xie nodded. He was using his cultivation to resist the White Lotus. If he allowed the White Lotus to enter his main body's evil will, Wang Feng would only need to activate it slightly to quickly purify the evil dragon's main body. To show my sincerity, I'll let your evil soul enter my sea of consciousness. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie. At this moment, Bibidon looked at Wang Wu suspiciously. She knew that Wang Wu was very cunning. She could tell that he was a spy from the moment he became her confidant. The white-robed Popediff could tell that he was a spy. He was putting on a good show. How could she give him something to use against her? Even though she did have something to use against him. Wang Feng dispersed the light mist formed by the white lotus, opening up an opening. Long Xie's body shook. A strand of his evil soul entered Wang Feng's sea of consciousness through his eyes. At the same time, Long Xie opened up a hole in the white lotus. Wang Feng controlled the white lotus and a white lotus petal fell. He sent it into Long Xie's evil soul. The petal was carefully wrapped by Long Xie's blood-red light before it entered his evil soul. Human, it seems like you're quite sincere. Long Xie looked at Wang Feng with a strange look in his eyes. Unfortunately, I'm not that simple. You let my evil soul enter your sea of consciousness. Do you know what that means? Your white lotus explosion can only purify 1/10 of my cultivation at most. However, as long as my evil thoughts enter your soul, it will never disappear. Your soul will be dominated by me. You're smart. You want to scheme against me, but you're still not as smart as I am. Ha ha, Bibidon frowned when she heard that. This soul beast wasn't easy to deal with either. However, Long Xie came to an abrupt stop. Then, he suddenly looked at Wang Feng with a terrified expression. Wang Feng looked at him with a smile. Bibidong frowned as he watched the scene unfold before him. P.S. 7 chapters, a little late, cough cough, end of chapter. Chapter 879. Inside the Sea of Consciousness. The moment Long Xie's evil will entered the sea of consciousness, it saw the spiritual pond that was as thick as ink. It wasn't as vast as the ocean. Instead, there was an invisible pressure. That was nothing. In the next moment, the chaotic green lotus, the Pangu axe, and the dark angel martial soul. 3 different martial souls. The martial souls in Wang Feng's spiritual consciousness instantly surrounded Long Xie's evil thought. Long Xie trembled. You! Long Xie screamed. Despicable human, what are those things in your spiritual consciousness? What are those 3 things? His voice was filled with incomparable terror. Even with his knowledge, he had never seen the green flower and the Pangu axe before. The aura they gave off was peerless. Furthermore, Long Xie's spiritual consciousness had extremely pure spiritual power and aura. It was untainted. Long Xie's evil thought couldn't move an inch. Even if all his evil thoughts entered Long Xie's spiritual consciousness, they wouldn't be able to invade Long Xie's spiritual consciousness. Long Xie's 3 mysterious martial souls were able to suppress Long Xie's evil thought. On the other hand, Long Xie could destroy Long Xie's evil thought at any time. Wang Feng laughed and looked at Long Xie. Kid, remember to call me boss from now on. From now on, you're no longer Long Xie. Long Xie. Long Xie looked at Wang Feng dejectedly. His final plan had gone down the drain. There was no way out. If even his evil thoughts were useless against Long Xie's spiritual consciousness, and were suppressed after entering Long Xie's spiritual consciousness, there was nothing he could do. Long Xie was in disbelief. He had never seen such a pure spiritual consciousness and spiritual consciousness before. Even gods had all kinds of thoughts. However, their souls were too strong, and they wouldn't be affected by these thoughts. However, gods weren't pure either. Every god had slaughtered countless living beings in their hand. Their souls were different from humans in that they were too strong. Any evil thoughts would be suppressed by their spiritual consciousness. However, it was impossible to say that their souls were pure. Killing intent, hatred, bottlenecks, all kinds of emotions and desires could cause different kinds of evil thoughts. This was why the soul beasts in the great Star Do forest had evil thoughts all the time. However, this human's soul and spirit were so pure that he couldn't do anything to him. It was even said that the three powerful and strange martial spirits could instantly suppress his evil thoughts. This was especially true for the dark angel martial soul. Even with his vast knowledge and experience, he had never seen such a martial soul before. In fact, he even had the urge to submit to it. The other two martial spirits emitted an aura that could easily crush his evil thoughts into nothingness. "I accept," Long Xie said dispiritedly. At this moment, Bibidan's beautiful eyes opened slightly. She didn't know what this soul beast had seen in Wang Wu's sea of consciousness. But as expected, with Wang Wu's cunning, it was impossible for him to fall into the other party's trap. Instead, it was this soul beast that had been tricked. Wang Feng smiled. Long Xie's words implied that the battle had come to an end. It could be said that this was the most difficult battle he had ever fought since he came to this world. The strength of a million-year soul beast refreshed Wang Feng's understanding. That kind of fighting style that really put one's life on the line was completely beyond one's normal fighting strength. Even his previous battle with Bibidan wasn't as troublesome as this one. In this battle, Wang Feng also realized that a true god-class soul beast was stronger than he had imagined. Most importantly, different soul beasts had different strengths and abilities. It was impossible to compare them. Unless one's strength was enough to completely crush a soul beast, the slightest carelessness would result in a GG. Thinking back, if Bibidan hadn't arrived and used her martial soul fusion skill, Wang Feng would have run away with his tail between his legs. "You must have a piece of your soul, right?" Wang Feng looked at Bibidan and said, "Those three soul beasts aren't dead yet. One of them died prematurely and dropped a soul bone. You shouldn't be lacking any." Guizhu, Qianjun, and Qianjun hadn't participated in the battle earlier. Instead, they had gone to restrain the three dying soul beasts. Of the four soul beasts that had attacked Deming and Erming, only the Hydra had been killed by the sea god's projection. The other three soul beasts hadn't died. However, thinking of this, Wang Feng was suddenly stunned. If Bibidan absorbed any two of the three soul beasts, would that mean Bibidan was about to become a god? Thinking of this, Wang Feng glanced at Bibidan and broke out in cold sweat. "What? Are you afraid that I'll become a god?" Bibidan seemed to have seen through Wang Feng's heart and a cold expression appeared on his face. "My injuries aren't as fast as yours. If you want to stop my inheritance, is it too late?" After saying that, Bibidan let go of Wang Feng's shoulder and stumbled back 2 steps. Hearing this, Wang Feng fell silent. After the battle just now, the relationship between the two of them was a little strange. But on such a sensitive topic, it was still the same. Seeing Wang Feng's silence, Bibidan's body trembled and said expressionlessly, "By the way, once I become a god, I will establish the martial soul empire. As for the remaining forces that are still struggling, I will personally take action and destroy them one by one." With the Martial Soul Alliance's current prestige in the continent, no one can say anything. Once Bibidan became a god, he didn't need to care so much. Now the Alliance had the upper hand. If he didn't establish an empire, with the Alliance's current momentum, the two empires would struggle to hold on. With a large number of soul masters flowing into the Alliance, the remaining strength of the two empires would collapse in a few years at most. If he became a god first, Bibidan wouldn't need to care. With the strength of a god, Bibidan didn't need to care about Wang Feng and Tang San. If he was ruthless, he could directly kill the emperors of the two empires and the leaders of the resistance forces. At that time, the two empires and countless forces would be in a mess, disintegrating and being swallowed by the Martial Soul Empire in an instant. The continent would be a foregone conclusion. Your friends, Tang San, Shrek's 7 monsters, and that soul beast. Bibidon looked at Wang Feng and said word by word, "As long as they don't join the alliance and continue to resist, I will be the first to capture them all. The 2 girls from the 7 freaks like you, don't they? And the 7 treasure glazed tile sect. Are you going to make a move on me now?" Hearing this, Wang Feng frowned slightly. "Wang Wu, you still have a choice now." Bibidon looked at Wang Feng coldly. "You can continue to be a Popediff Wang Wu and join the Martial Soul Alliance. I can give you anything you want. You can either stop me from becoming a god or kill me. Now this is your best and only chance." It was as if he had returned to the scene on the Sea God's Island. Wang Feng didn't expect it to be just a thought. His relationship with Bibidong, which was barely eased, exploded in an instant. He could only say that women were too sensitive. However, this was something he would have to face eventually. At the side, Long Xie seemed to be quite interested in the 2 of them. He had some understanding of martial soul fusion skills. He knew that it was impossible to use that kind of martial soul fusion skill if the 2 of them weren't close to a certain extent. However, the 2 of them who looked quite close and supported each other suddenly seemed to have a fierce conflict. Interesting man. Long Xie glanced at Wang Feng and then at Bibidon. Interesting woman. End of chapter. Chapter 880. However, Wang Feng said, "I won't stop you from becoming a god, but I won't join the Martial Spirit Hall and cut all ties." Bibidon sneered. "Wang Wu, are you still a middleman? Do you know that if you waver, you won't be able to please either side? You might not get anything in the end." "Is that so?" Wang Feng said in surprise. "I feel that if I waver, I can get anything. You're talking about people who aren't strong enough. But I'm different." "You!" Bibidon looked at him. Her face was red from anger. Bibidon seemed to think of something. She calmed down and didn't say anything. She ignored Wang Feng. Instead, she walked to the 3 soul beasts restrained by the 4 titled Doulu. Chrysanthemum Ghost and Qianjun Demon Fighter were injured by the aftershock of Long Xie's fake death. They were recovering quietly. In that sort of situation, the injuries they received were not light at all. "Interesting. You humans are really interesting." Long Xie chuckled as he watched the 2 of them leave. "Those 2 were so close just a moment ago. I didn't think they'd become strangers in such a short time. You humans are really interesting. Cut the crap. Hurry up and sacrifice." Wang Feng glared at Long Xie. "Also, those 3 soul beasts are your subordinate. Think of a way to sacrifice them to her." Wang Feng pointed at Bibidon. "She didn't kill your subordinates. They don't hate her. That shouldn't be difficult, right? Furthermore, her martial soul should be compatible with those 3 soul beasts. As long as 2 of them are willing, it'll be fine." Bibidon could change the situation if she became a god earlier. However, Wang Feng felt that he could control it. As long as he could get Long Xie's power and reach rank 90, he could suppress Bibidon. She still couldn't beat him. "Human, you seem to. What are you doing?" Long Xie looked over at Wang Feng and was about to say something when his true form trembled, and he glared angrily at Wang Feng. He felt the white lotus petal in the evil spirit's body release a wave of energy. He was in great pain. "What are you talking about? You have to call him boss in the future." Wang Feng glanced at Long Xie with a smile. Long Xie's face flickered. "In the end," he snorted coldly. "Boss, she wants to part ways with you. Why are you still helping her?" "It wasn't difficult for me to convince my 3 subordinates to sacrifice themselves. They had been injured by that god's divine will, so it was basically impossible for them to recover their cultivation. Sacrificing is also an option." These 3 subordinates had been by his side for a long time and were his fanatical followers. Now that even his master was going to be sacrificed, it would be good enough if his subordinates could keep their lives. This was because, theoretically speaking, the sacrifice was not a complete disappearance. 100,000-year soul beast was too powerful, and its soul would remain in the soul ring for the time being. Once the owner of the soul ring became a god, everyone would ascend to heaven. They might even have a chance to revive. But why would he do this? Because she helped me just now, Wang Feng said. I don't want to help you. Long Xie was stunned. Then, he sneered. If it wasn't for this human woman, you wouldn't have been able to defeat me. You want me to help you deal with my human woman? Those 3 soul beasts don't hate her, but I do. Sorry, I won't help you. Hearing this, Wang Feng smiled and said, Then you'd better think carefully. The sacrifice is just icing on the cake. Even if you don't sacrifice yourself, she can easily absorb it. But if you don't help her, you won't have an easy time in the future. These 3 subordinates of yours will also die. You pretentious dragon. Don't be too narrow-minded. That was the truth. But in fact, the sacrifice wasn't just icing on the cake. It was very useful for Bibidong right now. Because Bibidong was in a heavily injured state, if he sacrificed her, there would be no obstruction. She would be able to absorb it in a short period of time and use it to recover from her injuries. If she took the initiative to absorb it, it wouldn't be so easy. She would have to recover to her peak state before she could absorb it. It would take at least a few days for her to fully absorb it. After all, none of the 3 soul beasts were simple. Long Xie was silent. If that's the case, I'll reluctantly agree. Long Xie thought for a long time before he said, Wang Feng. This idiot, he's clearly thinking the same thing, but he's acting like I'm begging him? Wang Feng looked at Long Xie. He really wanted to show off all the time. Long Xie floated over to the 3 soul beasts. Bibidong frowned. She didn't know what he meant. Long Xie sent out a strand of evil consciousness into the 3 soul beasts. Then, he started to communicate with them. At first, the 3 evil soul beasts were very excited. But soon, they fell silent. Then, they looked at Bibidong. Bibidong knew what he meant. That was a look of hesitation in his eyes. They want to sacrifice themselves? Bibidong was taken aback. She looked at Long Xie and then at Wang Feng. She felt a ripple in her heart. He doesn't want to destroy my godly position. I'm overthinking it. Thinking of this, Bibidong sighed in his heart. If she sacrificed 2 soul beasts, she would become a god faster. Maybe I should consider his thoughts? This thought suddenly popped up in Bibidong's mind, and she immediately threw him into a corner and left. Impossible. The martial soul alliance was already set. The dawn of unifying the continent was right in front of her. Wang Wu couldn't be on her side. Even if he was neutral, Wang Wu couldn't do it. Shrek, the 2 empires and the 2 sections. How could he not help them? Bibidong looked at the distant horizon. In the past, her heart was filled with hatred and her will was firm. She wanted to unify the continent and destroy everything. However, after the 8th test, Bibidong felt that her will and mentality had changed a lot. The hatred in her heart had decreased by more than half. Although she still wanted to unify the continent, it was more of an ambition. She wanted to change the martial soul hall, which she hated. After returning from the Sea God's Island, she stayed silent for about a month. She didn't really deal with those factions. Then, she thought it through. She wanted to become a god. Only by becoming a god could she revive the dead. So, she came to the great Star Do forest to find the last 2 soul beasts to prepare for her ascension. But miraculously, she saw Wang Wu alive. After that, she wanted to become a god even more. That was the only way. Only then would she be able to reach a higher position. As for why, Bibidong didn't know. She wanted to reach a higher position. Only then would she dare to touch the impossible in her heart. End of chapter. Chapter 881. Just as Bibidong was lost in her thoughts, Long Xie came in front of her and said, "Human woman, give them some time. I hope you'll treat them well in the future. Even though they're evil soul beasts, they only listen to my orders. Everything they do is for my sake. Forget it. There's no point in talking to you. I'm going to make a sacrifice too. Long Xie Xiong walked back in high spirit. Bibidon. Bibidon didn't say anything as she looked at the three soul beasts, who were still in deep thought. With soul beasts as sacrifices, not only could she recover quickly, but her ascension to godhood would also be smoother. It was faster than she had planned. At the same time, the evil dragon returned to Wang Feng and shouted, "Human, prepare to receive my power. You'll feel honored and proud. This will be the luckiest thing in your life." After that, he didn't wait for Wang Feng to get angry. He rushed into the dragon's body that had been cut in two. Following this, a blood-golden soul ring rose from the body of this enormous dragon. "A million-year soul ring," Wang Feng muttered. "This should be the first million-year soul ring in this world, right?" Boundless life energy spread out from the giant dragon's body. Soul beast sacrifice wasn't an ordinary soul skill. It was a sacrifice of life and soul. It gave all its power to the person who made the sacrifice. To be able to get a million-year soul beast as a sacrifice, it could be said that it was impossible for this battle to be lacking in any aspect. At this moment, there were no evil thoughts in the blood-red energy. It contained pure life energy. Long Xie's figure was faintly discernible in the blood-gold soul ring. Life energy surged out like an ocean. It symbolized that this ancient life was about to be completely released at this moment. The blood-red energy didn't make people feel disgusted at all. Wang Feng sat cross-legged. The golden soul ring landed on his body. He didn't even need to use his soul power to guide it. The first million-year soul ring from a million-year soul beast. The first million-year soul beast sacrifice. Wang Feng didn't know how powerful it would be when it combined with the soul ring. But it would definitely be amazing. Boundless blood-colored energy surged into Wang Feng's body under the influence of that blood-golden soul ring. At the same time, Long Xie's true form began to fade. In his sea of consciousness, the chaotic green lotus emitted a dazzling green light. The lotus seed on the lotus platform quietly bloomed and turned into a white lotus. Boundless soul energy fused into Wang Feng's body, flowing into the white lotus in his sea of consciousness. In an instant, this pure and holy white lotus seemed to be dyed with blood. With the influx of boundless energy, the white lotus gradually bloomed, its petals becoming fuller and fuller, exuding a peaceful aura. However, the petals of the lotus were slightly redder. It added a special evil and demonic aura to this holiness. After obtaining Long Xie's soul ring, the white lotus that could purify the world became complete. The power of a million-year soul beast was an all-around increase in strength. Long Xie's true form wasn't weak at all. It was extremely strong. A vast amount of energy flowed in, causing Wang Feng to feel his strength rapidly growing. His body gave off layers of rainbow light. Wang Feng had underestimated the changes brought about by this million-year soul beast. At the same time, Long Xie was also sensing Wang Feng's body. A skill like sacrifice usually depended on how much power one could take. If one's body couldn't take it, then part of the soul ring's power would be stored temporarily. As the body of the other party became stronger, the soul ring's power would slowly be nurtured. However, it was clear that this human's body was extremely strong. With only rank 80 soul power, he could fight a million-year soul beast like Long Xie, who had lived for many years. In terms of strength, he wasn't inferior to Long Xie when he revealed his true form. Long Xie wasn't disappointed. Most of the energy in his soul ring was completely absorbed by Wang Feng. An explosive power rippled in Wang Feng's sea of consciousness. Wang Feng couldn't use words to describe the power he had obtained after absorbing the million-year soul ring. Long Xie was a demigod. He was only one step away from becoming a true god. After the white lotus matured, such immense cultivation flowed through Wang Feng's body. His soul power rank was rapidly increasing. Sacrifice allowed Wang Feng to absorb the soul ring's power without any hindrance or difficulty. As Wang Feng absorbed the soul ring's power, the dragon's body also started to change. 2 types of soul bones shone with a crystalline light. Other than that, there was also a set of armor made of blood-red scales, and an external soul bone. At this moment, Bibi Dong was standing in front of Wang Feng, staring blankly. Sacrifice was different from absorption. A soul beast gave all its power to the person it was sacrificing. Evidently, this million-year soul beast was far stronger than Bibi Dong had imagined. 2 arm soul bones and an external soul bone, Bibi Dong sighed softly. The target of the sacrifice was Wang Feng. The moment these soul bones were sacrificed, they were already inextricably linked to Wang Feng. It was extremely rare for a soul beast to drop 2 soul bones. However, Bibi Dong had seen it before. She had 2 soul bones too. They came from the same soul beast, the death spiderweb. Therefore, Bibi Dong was shocked by the scene in front of him. However, he wasn't so shocked that he couldn't imagine it. It was a pity that the external soul bone seemed to be in conflict with his own. Bibi Dong knew that Wang Feng had a soul bone that could transform into countless weapons. It was also an external soul bone that looked like an armor. What a pity! Bibi Dong shook his head gently. At this moment, the 3 soul beasts were still in an intense battle over whether to sacrifice to Bibi Dong. However, it should be over soon. After all, even their boss was in such a state. Bibi Dong walked over first to see how Wang Wu absorbed the first million-year soul ring in the history of the continent. Furthermore, it was absorbed in the most inconceivable way by sacrificing. Bibi Dong was naturally curious about this. What she was more curious about was that there was a limit to how much the human body could receive from a soul ring. Once this limit was exceeded, one would definitely not be able to withstand it. However, she wasn't one of them. This was because she was already half a step into the God realm and possessed a portion of God power. Her body could withstand the soul power of any 100,000-year soul beast. However, Wang Feng wasn't a god and hadn't stepped into the God realm. Although the sacrifice was based on the amount of power he could withstand, it could still exceed the limit. After all, it was 1,000,000 years. However, Bibi Dong immediately thought of Wang Wu's tyrannical body. His physique was even stronger than hers. How could a rank 80 human have such a strong body? The energy of the million-year soul ring quickly fused into Wang Feng's body. At this moment, Wang Feng's skin seemed to be dyed light red. Bibi Dong could clearly sense the explosive power without attacking. Every inch of his skin seemed to contain a power that could destroy heaven and earth. His body was completely able to withstand it. Bibi Dong muttered in his heart. End of chapter. Chapter 882. At the same time, in a place far away from them, Tang San was surrounded by golden flames. Tang San's body could withstand the power of 2 100,000-year soul beasts, but it was very limited. However, he was also the successor of the Sea God. He had passed the 7 trials of the Sea God, so he was naturally extraordinary. He was also half a step into the realm of God. With the power of the Sea God's trident, he perfectly absorbed the sacrifice of the 2 Ming emperors. Xiao Wu, on the other hand, looked into the distance worriedly. The sounds of the battle continued to spread. Even from so far away, Xiao Wu could feel how terrifying the scale of the battle was. Even in her soul form, she felt a little suffocated from the energy fluctuations. "I hope Brother Feng is fine." Xiao Wu turned around and looked at Tang San, her beautiful eyes widening slightly. Tang San had broken her soul bone, but it quickly grew back under the effect of his blue-silver domain. In addition, it was supported by the 2 Ming Emperor's soul bones. His strength did not decrease. His soul power had risen to rank 94 and was close to rank 95. He went from rank 80 to almost rank 10. At this time, He was using the power of the sea god's trident to absorb the power of the 2 soul rings. The clear sky hammer in his hand had gained its first 100,000-year soul ring. The blue-silver grass on the other hand lit up with 9 soul rings. In its martial soul form, it exuded the aura of the blue-silver emperor. All 5 red soul rings were second to none in the current continent. A moment later, the golden flames disappeared. Tang San's figure appeared. He stood up, his eyes shining, and his body was as imposing as the ocean. An incomparably powerful aura was faintly emitted from his body. Tang San rubbed his hands together, and the 2 unique soul bones seemed to be connected by flesh and blood. These 2 soul bones were given to him by the 2 Ming emperors after the sacrifice. However, Tang San did not hesitate. He picked up the trident and rushed in the direction of the battle. Xiao Wu, what happened when I absorbed the soul rings? Tang San's figure was like a ray of blue light, disappearing into the forest. His speed was already extremely fast. His current physique was much stronger than that of a rank 95 transcendent Doulu. I'm not sure, but the situation seems to have changed. I'm afraid the battle has already ended, Xiao Wu whispered. Upon hearing this, Tang San's heart skipped a beat. His soul power had already reached its limit after his breakthrough. Big Brother Feng, you can't let anything happen to you. Tang San's eyes flashed with a cold light. Otherwise, I'll kill you even if I have to risk my life, BB'd on. However, Xiao Wu felt uneasy. When Tang San finished absorbing the energy, the momentum of the battle had suddenly stopped. This meant that the outcome of the battle had been decided. Can Brother Feng defeat a million-year soul beast? Xiao Wu didn't know. Over the years, even though she had been in her soul form and rarely appeared in public, she was still aware of what Wang Feng had done. Taking a step back, even if he could defeat that terrifying million-year soul beast, he would still be able to defeat it. What if Bibidon's sneak attacked from the side? Brother Feng, who had survived with great difficulty, would have no chance of survival at all. To be able to defeat that million-year soul beast, he would definitely be in an extremely weak state. If he were to fight Bibidon, even if Xiao Wu and Tang San could only pray that the Pope Bibidon wouldn't arrive in advance, it would be best if he was delayed or obstructed. Soon they approached, because they could sense the aura, the enormous aura of a million-year soul beast. Oh no! Before they even saw it, Tang San's expression changed drastically. At this moment, he was enveloped in the vast sea-universe shroud and used the blue-silver domain to sense things very far away. Brother, what's wrong? Xiao Wu asked hurriedly. Bibidon is not far from Brother Feng. Tang San's expression was extremely ugly. According to my senses, Brother Feng seems to be absorbing the soul rings. I think Brother Feng must have sensed Bibidon's arrival midway. With his intelligence and foresight, not only did he not give Bibidon any opportunity, I'm afraid he even used Bibidon's strength to deal with that million-year soul beast. Because Bibidon's aura is very weak now. That million-year soul beast should have been killed. According to my guess, it is very likely that Brother Feng diverted the calamity and directed its anger to Bibidon, causing Bibidon to be seriously injured by that million-year soul beast. Brother Feng is really amazing. He turned danger into safety. Hearing this, Xiao Wu was stunned. She thought to herself, Brother Feng is probably the only one who can kill 2 birds with 1 stone at such a critical moment. Isn't that good? Xiao Wu heaved a sigh of relief. No, not good. Tang San's eyes flickered with purple light, and his whole body sped up by 30%. That Bibidon is a sinister and cunning person? She was schemed against and was severely injured, so she must have faked her death to confuse Brother Feng. She wants to take advantage of Brother Feng's weakened defense after absorbing the soul ring to give him a fatal blow. Xiao Wu, brother, you were absorbing the soul ring just now, how did you know so clearly? Xiao Wu asked. I analyzed it. Tang San's face was slightly gloomy. In the next moment, after passing through countless trees, the terrain that had been flattened due to the battle appeared in front of them. Both of them sucked in a breath of cold air. "Brother, quickly look, it's just as you thought!" Xiao Wu screamed and pointed to the front. At this moment, Bibidon was standing beside Wang Feng. Wang Feng's eyes were tightly closed, and a huge wave of soul power was emitted from his body. His golden soul ring was somewhat dazzling. The huge dragon's body had not completely disappeared, only 2 soul bones were slowly flowing into Wang Feng's body. Clearly, it was still absorbing the power of the soul ring and soul bone. Especially the blood-colored dragon scale armor, it was strangely floating on Wang Feng's chest at this moment. Bibidon looked at Wang Feng and thought of what she said before. She couldn't help but snort softly. "You're not worried at all, absorbing the soul ring directly. You have so many soul bones, aren't you afraid that I'll snatch them? Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? You're so relaxed." As she spoke, Bibidon looked at Wang Feng, who was absorbing the soul ring at this moment, and a trace of confusion flashed in her eyes. She stretched out her hand as if she was going to gently stroke his cheek. However, at this moment, accompanied by a fierce roar, a strong wave of soul power came. "Bibidon, you're courting death. Don't touch him. You'll never return." In the next moment, Bibidon was shocked. She was in an extremely weak state at this moment, and she didn't sense that there was someone around her. "Is that Tang San's voice?" She turned around abruptly and saw the figure charging towards her. Her heart skipped a beat. Danger! An intense sense of danger attacked Bibidon's mind. Then, a bright golden shadow appeared behind Tang San. It was holding a golden trident, and it had already locked onto Bibidon. The golden trident turned into a streak of flowing light as it pierced through the clouds and broke through the dawn. Bibidon's eyes suddenly shrank. She screamed and used the soul power that she had recovered just now, and her martial soul directly attached to her body. However, this amount of soul power was not enough for her to use her martial soul true body. The Rakshasa demon scythe appeared in her hand. Although she couldn't use it, it was a divine weapon, and its sharpness was needless to say. However, the moment she placed the Rakshasa demon scythe in front of her, the trident that was formed by the sea god's trident instantly pierced through her soul power barrier and sent the demon scythe flying in her hand. Poochie. It instantly pierced through her body. P.S. I want to rest today, but there might not be any left later. Everyone can go to bed early. End of chapter. Chapter 883. Under the protection of the vast sea cosmic shroud, Tang San broke through to rank 94 and unleashed the 13 golden halberds. Even though he wasn't very familiar with this move, even so, it still easily destroyed all of Bibidon's defenses. The golden halberd projection instantly penetrated Bibidon's body. The immense strength even sent her flying back dozens of meters. In the distance, the 4 titled Douluo who were recuperating immediately reacted. "Your Highness!" Instantly, the 4 of them felt their scalps go numb. They stood up furiously and glared at Tang San. Although they were also severely injured, they weren't as severely injured as Bibidon and Wang Feng. After recuperating, they had recovered about 50% to 60%. When they saw Bibidon being attacked by Tang San, they were furious, but their minds were also blank. It was important to note that Bibidon was very weak earlier. The 4 of them knew that. Under such circumstances, such a powerful move penetrated his body. The 4 of them released their soul rings as they stared coldly at Tang San. "Kill him!" The chrysanthemum Douluo shouted. "We shouldn't have let him live earlier." After he finished speaking, Qian Jun and the demon fighter immediately rushed towards Tang San. The chrysanthemum Douluo and the ghost Douluo quickly walked in front of Bibidon. They wanted to check on the Pope's injuries. When they saw him, they felt a chill in their hearts. That dazzling golden move was simply too powerful. That was a divine skill. After being penetrated by this move, a huge hole appeared on Bibidon's body. Golden light spread from the wound and intertwined with the purplish-black aura on Bibidan's body. The two different forces seemed to be fighting each other. However, the two of them could sense that the Pope's life force was quickly fading away. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for the Pope to survive. He was definitely going to die. The chrysanthemum Douluo and the ghost Douluo looked at each other. Then, they glared at Tang San. Immediately after, the two of them looked at each other and rushed towards Tang San. What would it mean if Bibidan was dead? This meant that the current momentum of the martial spirit alliance would collapse instantly. All the efforts of the martial spirit palace over the past few years would be for naught. We must kill this brat. This was the only thought in the minds of the chrysanthemum Douluo and ghost Dalu. However, at this moment, a cold sneer flashed through Tang San's eyes at the sight of the Ju Douluo and Gue Dalu. Brother, can you beat four-titled Douluo? Xiao Wu worriedly communicated with Tang San telepathically. Of course not. Tang San replied, but Bibidan is dead and Big Brother Feng is safe. I don't need to defeat them. I just need to lure them all away. Furthermore, there are injuries on their bodies. It's obvious that they were affected by the shock waves of the battle between the million-year soul beasts. It's not that easy to kill me. It was true that Tang San could not defeat four-titled Douluo, especially the twin brothers, Qian Jun and Gong Mo, who were both rank 96 titled Douluo. Even with his recent breakthrough, he had not had time to adapt to the situation. I see. This way we can create a safe environment for Big Brother Feng. Xiao Wu nodded. Then, brother, let's go. Bibidan is dead. Without her, the Martial Spirit Alliance's situation on the continent will change quickly. Furthermore, at this point, Xiao Wu did not continue the conversation. Bibidan's death meant too many things. Her current state could be said to be indirectly caused by Bibidan. Furthermore, there was her mother. Big Brother Feng was killed by Bibidan once. That day on the Sea God's Island, everyone was pulled into the Rakshasa secret realm. It could be said that they were facing the Grim Reaper. They were only one step away from death. Tang San glanced at Wang Feng in the distance. He thought that he had arrived in time. Immediately, he turned and left. After killing Bibidan and luring away the four-titled Douluo, Big Brother Feng was completely free of worries. Seeing Tang San turn and slip away, the four-titled Douluo were even more furious. This kid was also cunning. How could it be so easy to run away after killing someone? Instantly, they chased after him. They didn't think that Huiyuhao would be able to escape from four-titled Douluo. For a moment, the empty space was silent. Only the three soul beasts in the distance were still a little dazed. They had just figured out that by sacrificing themselves to the human woman, they could at least save their lives. Who would have thought that the situation would change so suddenly? She was gone? How could they sacrifice? For a moment, the three soul beasts' heads were buzzing. They could only look at Wang Feng. At this moment, Wang Feng was still absorbing the soul ring's power. He was completely unaware of the situation outside. Bibidan had approached him, and she did not even know. The cultivation of a million-year soul beast was too powerful. Furthermore, there were three soul bones. Two of the arm bones were already attached to Wang Feng's arms. These two arm bones were covered with faint scales, and looked like dragon scale armor. They shone with a blood-red light and looked very cool. As this blood-red light nurtured him, Wang Feng's soul power started to increase rapidly. From rank 81 to rank 88. Finally, the reward of the second trial of the Sea God caused Wang Feng's soul power to stop at rank 89. In his sea of consciousness, after the White Lotus matured, a portion of the million-year soul ring's power was quickly flowing into the chaotic green lotus. As the green light shone, the chaotic green lotus surfaced above Wang Feng's head. It exuded a mysterious aura. As it spun slightly, the chaotic green lotus seemed to nurture a mysterious power at the same time. The profound nether armor and the blood dragon armor that were attached to his chest quietly floated to the surface. The countless scales on the blood dragon armor suddenly disintegrated. Similar to the Xianming armor, the Xianming spike also turned into countless green light. The Xianming armor was originally pitch black. However, after absorbing the 800,000-year soul ring on the sea god's island, the chaotic green lotus released a streak of chaotic divine light. Not only did it change Wang Feng's physique, but it also changed the Xianming armor. As a result, the armor turned green, and its power increased greatly. The blood dragon armor was actually very similar to the Xianming armor. This was because they were both formed from the countless scales on Long Xie's body. In terms of weight, they were not inferior to the Xianming armor. As an external soul bone from a million-year soul beast, its power was naturally even more terrifying. At this moment, the chaotic green lotus true body quickly turned into the cauldron of heaven and earth. In the next moment, the Xianming spike and blood dragon scales flew into the cauldron of heaven and earth. Wang Feng closed his eyes and absorbed them. His mind was immersed in this vast power. Naturally, he knew what was going on with the soul bones. For others, two external soul bones at the same location would be very troublesome. They would definitely have to give up one of them. However, for Wang Feng, the cauldron of heaven and earth meant that there were no soul bones that he couldn't fuse with. Wang Feng understood the cauldron control technique. He sat where he was and streaks of energy struck the cauldron of heaven and earth. End of this chapter. Chapter 884. This method could ensure that the external soul bones could be fused and become stronger. Wang Feng planned to fuse them with the power of the million-year soul rings. The cauldron of heaven and earth started to spin rapidly. It seemed like a divine item was about to be born. Given Wang Feng's current abilities, it didn't take long for him to fuse them. The fusion of the two soul bones was complete. Suddenly, a streak of divine light shot out from the cauldron of heaven and earth and into the clouds. A set of scarlet-green armor slowly appeared. The moment it appeared, the air seemed to become much heavier. Under the immense pressure, it seemed like space was collapsing. Immediately after, the scarlet-green armor landed on Wang Feng's body. It stuck to his chest and was faintly discernible. Xianming blood dragon armor. It was a million-year external soul bone that had fused with the two external soul bones. The instant Wang Feng absorbed it, the enormous power shocked even Wang Feng. The Xianming blood dragon armor weighed at least 200,000 kilograms. Wang Feng didn't know the exact weight, but it was much heavier than the sea god's trident. It was also very solid. At this moment, Wang Feng didn't even have time to feel the changes brought about by the million-year soul ring. The two soul bones and the newly fused Xianming blood dragon armor, before Wang Feng could finish absorbing the power of the soul rings, he suddenly felt a huge wave of soul power sweep past him. Wang Feng was stunned. After a moment, Wang Feng opened his eyes. His surroundings were very quiet. It was as if nothing had happened. Following this, Wang Feng saw Bibidon, who was on the verge of death. His pupils shrank and his mind went blank. What's going on? What's going on? Without hesitation, Wang Feng's figure flashed. He arrived in front of Bibidon and sensed it. He knew that Bibidong was going to die at this moment. Wang Feng was stunned. Someone attacked me? Wang Feng thought to himself. There was such a strong battle in this place. Who would dare to attack Bibidon in such a place? Also, why did they attack Bibidon and not him? At this moment, Bibidon's eyes seemed to have lost their color and spirit. Countless cracks appeared all over his body. He looked like he was about to break. Is it Xiao San? Wang Feng sensed the aura of the Neptune's trident on Bibidon's chest and guessed what had happened. After all, Bibidon was a powerhouse who was half a step away from becoming a god-tier powerhouse. Tang San's attack was not enough to instantly kill Bibidon. But now, the Bibidon was in a very bad state. More than half of her body had been devoured by Gone Without Return, which contained the light of the sea god. Coupled with the fact that she was in a weakened state, the deity position that she had yet to inherit would slowly be annihilated under this attack. Naturally, she would not be able to keep her life. The only reason she was still alive was because of the Rakshasa god's divine power. She was barely able to withstand the light of the sea god. His body was shattered, his godly power was weakened, and even his godly aura was starting to weaken. Seeing this, Wang Feng stared at the Bibidon. Vaguely, she moved her hand and pointed at Wang Feng. No one knew what he meant. Wang Feng was suddenly at a loss. If Bibidon died just like that, did it mean that it would be very easy for him to be the last to punch in? This world was about to come to an end. His greatest threat and enemy would also disappear. He should be able to smoothly cultivate to level 90. How difficult would it be to punch in? He didn't even need to do anything. He just needed to watch and do nothing. Bibidon would naturally die. If she died, it would seem that everything was over. But would he do that? Reason told Wang Feng that maybe it was right to not do anything. But humans were not rational. They had emotions. Not to mention humans, even gods had emotions. Wang Feng sighed softly and looked at the Bibidon. It was a little troublesome for Wang Feng to save the Bibidon, but it was not impossible. After all, Bibidon was a demigod powerhouse. No one in this world could save her in this state of broken body and scattered godly power. Unless a true god descended. Wang Feng was not a true god, but he still had a way to save her. After thinking for a long time, if Bibidon did not help to subdue the evil dragon today, then, even if she had fallen in front of him, Wang Feng felt that he might not have saved her. But after the battle with the evil dragon, he could not just ignore it. If Bibidon had not appeared in the godbinding scale cage and bought him time, he would have died. Wang Feng's current situation would not have been any better. Even if her life was not in danger, she would have escaped with serious injuries. In that instant, Wang Feng seemed to think of many things. In the end, his consciousness and gaze focused on the Bibidon. He did not hesitate. The golden lotus in Wang Feng's hand spun. A rainbow-like ray of golden light fell on the Bibidon's body. At level 89, Wang Feng's golden lotus had reached an extremely powerful level. The moment this mellow golden light covered Bibidon's entire body, her broken body immediately stopped bleeding. The light of the sea god in the center of the hole gradually disappeared under the golden lotus light. But just stopping the bleeding wasn't enough. This was the light of the sea god, a true godly power. With the golden lotus current ability, it was already very powerful to be able to slowly disperse the destructive power of the light of the sea god. If it were any other healing-type soul master, even a titled Douluo, they would not be able to do anything. A godly power was not something that soul masters could resist. However, Wang Feng's golden lotus alone was not enough to save the Bibidon. She would still die, but it would be a slower death. The golden lotus could protect her heart. Just like De Ming and Er Ming, it was impossible for the golden lotus to instantly revive a person, let alone a demigod. Life forms were too advanced. Wang Feng was only level 89, and the golden lotus was only in the form of his martial soul. It was still not at the level where it could easily heal a demigod powerhouse back to their original state. Chaotic green lotus, Wang Feng shouted. He infused his spiritual power into the chaotic green lotus above his head. It moved slowly until it finally landed on the Bibidon's body. This was one of the keys to saving the Bibidon. When he was level 80 and absorbed an 800,000-year soul ring, his martial soul true body was awakened. After absorbing the 800,000-year soul ring, it gave him a streak of chaotic divine light. Under that streak of chaotic divine light, Wang Feng's body underwent a fundamental change. That was a change in his potential. It was one of the fundamental reasons why he could fight a demigod. With that streak of chaotic divine light, Wang Feng was greatly improved in the furious wave's desperate realm. All this while, Wang Feng had been thinking about how the chaotic divine light was released. But just now, Wang Feng had a rough idea. After the green lotus awakened its martial soul true body, the chaotic divine light should be given to him after absorbing a soul ring every 10 rank. End of chapter. Chapter 885. The chaotic green lotus had absorbed part of the million-year soul ring earlier, so it had been emitting chaotic divine light. If the soul power hadn't awakened him, Wang Feng would have been bathed in the chaotic divine light by now. The chaotic divine light is nourished by the chaotic green lotus. The golden lotus is protecting Bibidan's heart. With the chaotic divine light, she should be able to come back to life. But her body is already broken. Wang Feng looked at the 3 soul beasts in the distance. Long Xie jumped out of Wang Feng's soul ring and turned into a shadow. He looked at Bibidan and clicked his tongue. Her body is broken, and her godly aura is almost gone. That means she's no longer qualified to inherit the godhood throne. That move is also a divine skill. If she wasn't a demigod, she would have died instantly. Boss, do you still want to save her? I advise you not to think about it. Even a true god might not be able to save her. It's already incredible that you were able to keep her alive until her last breath. Long Xie turned into a blood-red shadow and glanced at Bibidan. Then, he looked at the chaotic green lotus. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. Even though it had become Wang Feng's soul ring, he didn't know what kind of martial soul it would be. How could it emit such an aura? A true god? Wang Feng laughed. How can trash like that compare to me? Long Xie, boss, you're the best at bragging. Long Xie said with a smile. But that's true. Trash like a true god isn't qualified for me to become a soul ring. Wang Feng, cut the crap. Let the 3 soul beasts come over and sacrifice them. Wang Feng's eyes flashed. Long Xie was stunned. Boss, her body is so weak now. Even if we sacrifice them, she can't bear the power of 300,000-year soul beasts. If you want her to die, just say it. Long Xie was right. Bibidan's body was broken. She couldn't bear the sacrifice of 3 soul beasts. The most important thing was that Bibidan couldn't absorb the power of the 3 soul beasts' sacrifice to recover. She couldn't even use the Rakshasa demon side's power, because she couldn't even lift it in her current state. In addition, the god aura on his body had disappeared, so he could no longer use the Rakshasa demon side. Her consciousness was also on the verge of dissipating. I have my ways, Wang Feng said calmly. Since the primal chaos divine light could only be used once, Wang Feng was not sure how much power it could unleash this time. However, he could definitely wake up Bibidan and restore it to its original state. After that, he would borrow the power of the 3 soul beasts to repair Bibidan's broken body. Although Bibidan couldn't absorb it, Wang Feng could use the karmic fire of the Red Lotus to consume the soul power from the 3 soul beasts to refine and repair her body. She did not need to absorb it. However, the pain involved might be a little exaggerated. However, Wang Feng felt that with Bibidan's willpower, it wouldn't be difficult for him to pull through. Speaking of the karma that Bibidan had shouldered, it was perhaps extraordinarily strong. However, Bibidan was the first villain of the original novel. Without Tang San, she was the original protagonist of the original novel. With the soul power from the 3 soul beasts, she might be able to do it. This might be the only way to save Bibidan. Wang Feng wasn't confident if he lacked any link, because the conditions were too harsh. The primal chaos divine light could only absorb the soul ring once. If Wang Feng went through the baptism of the primal chaos divine light, Wang Feng's 6 soul bones might have a chance to fuse into one. Even if it wasn't a god equipment, it would still be powerful to a certain extent. After training and developing his own potential, Wang Feng was confident that he could defeat a god-rank powerhouse. Unfortunately, he encountered such a situation. Perhaps there were gains and losses. Long Xie's sacrifice, a 1,000,000-year soul ring, 3 soul bones, and 2 external soul bones fused together. Just any one of these was an unimaginable opportunity for others. However, he lost the primal chaos divine light after obtaining these. He didn't regret it. Wang Feng didn't want to have any regrets. There was more to the primal chaos divine light. However, if he died, there would be nothing left. Long Xie didn't say anything when he saw Wang Feng's unyielding attitude. He let the 3 soul beasts walk over and surround the 2 of them in a triangular formation. The 3 soul beasts looked at each other, but they didn't hesitate. Or rather, they had no choice. 300,000-year soul rings rose from the 3 soul beasts. These soul rings were blood black. The moment they landed on Bibidan's body, the 3 soul rings formed a majestic energy. Under the 3 soul beasts' control, they slowly covered Bibidan's body. Wang Feng spun the red lotus in his hand as he shouted. In an instant, the red lotus suddenly expanded. Endless karmic fire burned the void. There was no heat, but the 3 soul beasts were terrified. If the karmic fire landed on them, they would be burned into nothingness. These flames, Long Xie narrowed his eyes. He had experienced it before. Given his life form, he wasn't afraid. Although he had absorbed the evil thoughts of many soul beasts, he had cultivated them. They weren't his own karmic fire. On the contrary, he had shouldered some of the karmic fire for many soul beasts. In addition, he had spent most of his time cultivating and resisting the heavenly tribulation. After going through several heavenly tribulations, his soul was very pure. Therefore, the karmic fire of the red lotus didn't have much effect on him. However, Long Xie could sense that these were flames. Even a god couldn't avoid them. However, if a god was strong enough, the flames wouldn't be fatal. At this moment, as the red lotus grew bigger, Bibidan's body slowly floated onto the red lotus pedestal. Countless karmic fire of the red lotus burned. It formed a fiery-colored lotus that enveloped Bibidan. Long Xie couldn't sense what was going on inside. He could only see the 3 soul beasts sacrificing their life force and pouring it into the lotus. Wang Feng's expression turned serious. His soul power was quickly draining away. Back then, he had spent a lot of effort to refine his body. Now, he had to use the karmic fire of the red lotus to refine Bibidan's body. He would need a lot more time. Wang Feng wasn't sure what would happen. Long Xie burrowed into Wang Feng's soul ring and activated it so that Wang Feng's soul power could circulate even faster. The karmic fire of the red lotus burned fiercely. The 3 streams of energy were so condensed that they looked like 3 long rivers, pouring into the lotus shield. At the same time, the chaotic green lotus shone brightly at the top of the lotus. The green light slowly entered the red lotus. Inside, Wang Feng's eyes were like fireflies. He stared at everything inside the lotus as he poured his soul power into the red lotus. The flames burned brighter. End of chapter. Chapter 886. He could sense everything inside as he was the one who controlled the karmic fire of the red lotus. Inside the lotus shield, the terrifying karmic fire of the red lotus burned every inch of Bibidan's body. However, it did not cause any harm to her. Instead, it caused her body to emit streaks of red light as it was being refined. The energy from the 3 soul beasts' sacrifice also surged into Bibidan's body. At the same time, the chaotic divine light fell from the top and landed on Bibidan's body. In an instant, the hole in the center was being restored at a speed visible to the naked eye. The power of the chaotic divine light was obvious. It was being refined and restored at the same time. Wang Feng's current situation was also special. Even a deity might not be able to do this. Wang Feng could sense every inch of her body through the karmic fire of the red lotus. Painful moans came from Bibidan's mouth. She seemed to have recovered to a certain extent and gradually regained consciousness. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus had just begun to burn her soul. Through the burning of the karmic fire of the Red Lotus, Wang Feng completely understood Bibidan's experience. It was different from when he entered the secret realm. At that time, Wang Feng only saw the evilest side of Bibidan's heart and what she had experienced. When Wang Feng used the karmic fire of the Red Lotus to refine her body, all the scenes from his previous life flashed through his mind. Then, under the burning of the karmic fire of the Red Lotus, they turned into smoke. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus would burn away all the karma and resentment brought about by those experiences. It burned even more cleanly than when Bibidan broke through her inner demons in the 8th examination. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus slowly burned through every inch of Bibidan's body. Wang Feng did not dare to refine her brain. It was too dangerous and Bibidan was not in her best condition. Refining the brain was very difficult. It was not something that could be overcome by just suffering. Back in the northernmost land, Wang Feng had only succeeded in refining it with the help of the myriad soul's ice heart, the frigid ice spirit cavern in the nature manifestation valley, the unique terrain, and his adaptation to the Red Lotus fire. Wang Feng did not dare to refine Bibidan's head directly. He only dared to temper the area below the brain. Bibidan's clothes had long since been burned to ashes. Every inch of his skin that had been cut off was being refined by the karmic fire of the Red Lotus, the sacrificial power of the 3 soul beasts, and the primal chaos divine light. With the passage of time, every inch was filled with a sparkling and translucent luster. At this moment, Wang Feng was not in the mood to admire this natural body that had been tempered by the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. He needed to control the Red Lotus hellfire and carefully sense its limits. At the same time, he had to channel his soul power into the Red Lotus, which was extremely taxing on his soul power and spiritual power. After absorbing Long Xie's soul ring, Wang Feng's spiritual power had condensed into a semi-solid state. He was much stronger than before. But even so, the consumption of spiritual power was extremely fast. The Red Lotus hellfire burned from bottom to top. 9 soul rings shone from Bibidan's body. A purplish-black shadow appeared on Bibidan's body. That was Bibidan's Luosha godhood. When Tang San's spear struck Bibidan's body, the Luosha godhood had gradually disappeared. But it was condensing now. Wang Fengxin was shocked when he saw this. At the same time, countless memories in Bibidan's mind were burned away by the Red Lotus hellfire. In addition, her body had been refined and was shining with a luster. In addition, the 3 soul beasts had been sacrificed, and the 3 soul rings had been added to Bibidan's body. This allowed Bibidan to condense the true Luosha godhood. Does this mean that she has passed the 9th test? Wang Fengxin was shocked. He had wanted to save Bibidan, but it seemed like he had gone too far. No, it's not enough, Wang Feng muttered. The power of the 3 soul beasts had been used by Wang Feng to refine and repair Bibidan's body. Her broken body had healed and become stronger. But it wasn't enough for Bibidan to break through to rank 100. After all, it took a lot of energy to refine and repair Bibidan's body. This was also why Wang Feng couldn't use his golden lotus to instantly heal Bibidan. It was the same for the chaotic divine light. From the situation just now, with the help of the chaotic divine light, Bibidan's body's potential should have become stronger. If Bibidan could unleash all of this potential, it would be very easy for her to reach rank 100. She was already a demigod who had surpassed rank 99. The strangest thing was that the purplish-black shadow was also tainted with a faint green glow. It had an additional aura of chaos. At this moment, Bibidan's eyes suddenly opened. Her purplish-black eyes were flowing with a soul-stirring light. In an instant, a majestic aura was released from her body. The purplish-black shadow that was tainted with a green glow roared. It broke the lotus barrier. Wang Feng's expression changed, and he was flung back. The red lotus instantly dissipated, and the chaotic green lotus also returned to Wang Feng's body. That terrifying aura caused Wang Feng, who had expended more than half of his soul power and spiritual power, to bleed. Bibidan's body was shining with a crystal-like luster. Every part of her was beautiful. Right now, she looked a little younger. Her beautiful face was also flowing with a layer of inviolable dignity and nobility. The black scythe mark between her eyebrows was more solid, but there was an additional green glow on it. She was expressionless, and her gaze was calm. She took out a long robe from the soul tool at her fingertip. She covered her body, which was so beautiful that it could drive all living things crazy. At this moment, the 3 soul beasts had disappeared. Only 3 soul bones were left floating in midair. But Bibidan didn't look at them. She just stared at Wang Feng. She had been feeling it from the beginning to the end. She felt the pain brought by the karmic fire of the red lotus very clearly. The karmic fire of the red lotus burned away her past experiences and all kinds of emotions and resentments, making her feel very relaxed. Her mind was clear, as if she had been reborn. At this moment, this body that was full of life and seemed to be in harmony with the surrounding heaven and earth gave her a new feeling. Even bearing the power of the Rakshasa deity didn't make Bibidan feel more relaxed and comfortable. However, at this moment, Bibidan looked calmly at Wang Feng, who was wiping his mouth in the distance. "Why did you spend so much effort to save me?" Bibidan put her hands behind her back. Her clear voice didn't sound cold, but it was a little cold. "Isn't it better for you to let me die? Do you know what kind of me you have created? I can kill you easily now. Why did you save me?" Wang Feng looked at Bibidan. After the body and soul were tempered by the karmic fire of the red lotus, she seemed to have changed. "Do you think I will agree with you just because of this?" Bibidan looked at the silent Wang Feng. Her hands behind her back suddenly clenched. Her voice suddenly became louder. "Why did you save me?" Bibidan's eyes exuded an increasingly cold aura. She turned around. Her back was facing Wang Feng, but her eyes were misty. "You shouldn't have saved me." Chapter 887. Why do you talk so much nonsense? Wang Feng frowned. "You saved me once just now, and I saved you once. We're even." "Impossible." However, Bibidan turned around, and the mist in her eyes evaporated instantly. She looked at Wang Feng coldly. "Impossible? You don't know what this means." After saying that, Bibidan's figure flashed and appeared in front of Wang Feng. Their auras were extremely compatible at this time. However, Wang Feng was much stronger than Bibidan because he was in the complete form after being tempered by the red lotus hellfire. The fusion of their auras made Bibidan's breathing a little faster. Her palms sucked, and the huge Rakshasa demon's scythe appeared in her hand. It emitted a cold light and pointed at Wang Feng. "Why? Do you really think you can kill me?" Wang Feng asked curiously. Although he had consumed more than half of his soul power and was in a dry state, his spiritual power was almost exhausted. But if he wanted to leave, it would be easy. Bibidan did not answer. She just stared at Wang Feng and then walked toward Wang Feng step by step. With every step she took, the Rakshasa demon's scythe in her hand trembled slightly as if she was struggling in her heart. When she was 2 or 3 meters away from Wang Feng, the Rakshasa demon's scythe suddenly fell to the ground. Then, Bibidan tiptoed and her figure flashed again. Suddenly, she appeared in front of Wang Feng. She tiptoed slightly and kissed him. Wang Feng was stunned. However, the moment her lips touched Wang Feng, in less than 2 seconds, she sent Wang Feng flying with a single palm strike. "Wang Feng." Bibidan picked up the Rakshasa demon's scythe on the ground and immediately turned around. She waved her hand and stopped the 3 soul bones. Her originally cold voice trembled a little. "Wang Wu, 1 year later, I will become a god. The continent will be unified. If you can defeat me at that time, I will agree with your idea." If you can't defeat me, don't even think about it. At that time, everything will be controlled by me, Bibidon. You have no right to choose. As for that Tang San, for your sake, I will spare his life for the time being. Goodbye. His slightly trembling voice disappeared into the horizon. Wang Feng touched the warmth on his lips and was momentarily speechless. Of course, he knew what Bibidong meant. Oh ho! At this moment, Long Xie suddenly jumped out and clicked his tongue. Boss, you're quite lucky with women. What a pity, what a pity. Look at how busy you are, you didn't get anything. Are you still looking forward to her throwing herself into your arms and offering herself to you after you save her? Wang Feng shook his head. What kind of joke was this? That was a Bibidon. He wanted her to throw herself into his arms? I didn't lose anything. Wang Feng shook his head. Those 3 soul beasts were meant to be sacrificed to him. At most, I will be weak for a while. The only thing he had truly lost was the chaotic divine light. However, the chaotic divine light was indeed extraordinary. But in the end, Bibidon kissed him. This was something that Wang Feng had never expected. Could it be that she had taken a fancy to him? Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. He'd always thought that Bibidon's feelings for him were more of admiration than anything else. He also thought that Bibidon treated him as a close friend. But it didn't seem that simple. Could it be that my charm has already reached such a level? Even the first villain of the original novel is charmed by me? Wang Feng looked up at the sky and sighed. Boss, this human woman didn't seem to want to live at first. Long Xie looked into the distance. When she was pierced by that divine skill, she wanted to die. But after she was saved, not only did her body reform, even her thoughts changed. And boss, Long Xie hesitated for a moment. From my experience, this human woman's godhood might have changed as well. Perhaps it's not that simple. You're in trouble. Listen to what he's saying. Boss, if you can't defeat her in a year, you'll become her exclusive property. Long Xie couldn't help but laugh. Although he had been alive most of the time, he had absorbed a lot of evil thoughts and sensed a lot of emotions. He had a thorough understanding of them. Of course, he knew what Bibidon was implying. Wang Feng thought about what Bibidon had said. Do you know what kind of person you've created? Could it be that Bibidong's deity position had changed? The chaotic divine light could increase a person's potential. Did it affect his godhood as well? If that was the case, it would be troublesome. He was now at 89, but his soul power felt like it had been fixed. The amount of soul power he needed to reach rank 90 was terrifying enough to make Wang Feng's scalp tingle. Unless he sacrificed a million-year soul beast. Forget it. That was just daydreaming. Wang Feng could crush a demigod now. He didn't even need Bibidon's help to defeat Long Xie. However, Bibidon's strength had reached an even more ridiculous level. He could even kill Long Xie. Bibidon said that a year was still a long time. Wang Feng estimated that Bibidon would become a god in 2 to 3 months. At the latest, half a year. Wang Feng was still some distance away from a true god. He couldn't compare to a true god with a godhood. True gods were indeed powerful. As Long Xie had said, he would be easily annihilated by a true god. Therefore, he wouldn't appear on the continent to avoid attracting the attention of a god. Terrible? Wang Feng smiled. Let's see, boss, you're very confident. Your soul power is different from all the soul masters I've seen. Long Xie pondered. It's very difficult to increase it. My million-year soul ring only increased by 8 rank. It's unbelievable. If it were any other soul master, I could give them 2 soul rings. They wouldn't be able to take one. But you're at rank 90. I can't give you 2 soul rings. By the way, Tian only has 800,000 years in the Great Star Do Forest. If he becomes your 9th soul ring, you won't be able to defeat that human woman who's become a god. Long Xie seemed to think of something. She's the only one in the Great Star Doe Forest who can compare to me. However, she's still asleep. I can't find her exact location. Even if you kill her, you won't be able to fully absorb her soul. You're also my nemesis. Otherwise, I wouldn't have sacrificed her to you. Long Xie shook his head. There's one more question. Boss, you're so strong. Why didn't a god choose you? Are those gods blind? Wang Fengxin thought to himself. They weren't blind. I didn't choose her. In addition, the Dark Angel Martial Soul had absorbed all of their power. Wang Fengxin thought of something. Is it time to add a soul ring to the Dark Angel Martial Soul? P.S. Everyone, it's time to vote. There are 5 more chapters tonight. End of chapter. Chapter 888. With Wang Feng's current physical condition, he could naturally bear adding soul rings to his second martial soul. However, it was very difficult to add soul rings to his first martial soul. The difficulty of adding soul rings to his second martial soul was probably not small. This difficulty was not reflected in killing soul beasts, but in finding soul beasts. There were not many powerful soul beasts in the current Douluo world. If his second martial soul's soul ring was only 10,000 year, it would not be very helpful to Wang Feng. It would need at least 100,000 year soul rings, or close to that, for the improvement to be obvious. If his Dark Angel Martial Soul could have all red soul rings, Wang Feng would be able to defeat God-ranked experts easily. However, he could not find so many soul beasts. At the same time, he had to consider whether his Dark Angel Martial Soul could absorb them. As for the Pangu Axe, Wang Feng did not consider it for now. Whether it was the Dark Angel Martial Soul or the Chaotic Green Lotus, Wang Feng was cultivating and becoming stronger. The Dark Angel Martial Soul's 7 blood patterns and the Chaotic Green Lotus could transform into various forms. The former relied on absorbing various emotional energies and part of the power of God. Once it was activated, it could increase one's attributes by more than 10 times. The Chaotic Green Lotus relied on the rules of the Douluo world to cultivate soul rings and evolve into various forms. However, Wang Feng had never cultivated the Pangu Axe. In fact, Wang Feng knew about the Pangu Axe's abilities. However, he was not sure how to truly control it. It was different from the Chaotic Green Lotus. As the origin of all things, it could transform into various forms through cultivation. As it became stronger, Wang Feng could control it firmly. Even at rank 89, Wang Feng did not dare to say that he could completely control the Pangu Axe. This might be because he did not add soul rings to the Pangu Axe. However, Wang Feng suspected that the Pangu Axe would not accept ordinary soul rings. Wang Feng sometimes guessed that if he wanted to become a god, he would have to add soul rings to all 3 of his martial souls. Wang Feng could not imagine how difficult it would be. The Chaotic Green Lotus was the strongest and had the best compatibility. It was the most comfortable to add soul rings to it. Wang Feng could understand that it did not reject any of his martial souls. However, the other 2 martial souls, especially the Pangu Axe, as he thought of this, Wang Feng and Long Xie stayed in the Great Star Doe Forest for a few days. He planned to search for it. The Great Star Doe Forest was very large, but many soul beasts had gone into hiding, perhaps because the battle with Long Xie had caused too much commotion. Wang Feng had absorbed Long Xie's soul ring. Long Xie was an evil spirit that lived off of the Great Star Doe Forest. According to the history revealed by Long Xie and Wang Feng, he had been living in the Great Star Doe Forest for a very, very long time. When he was born, there weren't so many soul beasts on this continent. At that time, there weren't even soul masters. Long Xie didn't want to talk about his background, so Wang Feng didn't ask. However, if a single strand of evil intent was able to produce the evil dragon and absorb the evil intent of all the soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest, then it was obvious that this was the evil intent of an ancestor of soul beasts. No matter what, Wang Feng believed that Long Xie would tell him one day. After absorbing his soul ring, Wang Feng also obtained Long Xie's ability to absorb the evil intent of soul beasts. This wasn't a soul skill. It was the power Long Xie had bestowed upon Wang Feng. A million-year soul ring was beyond the realm of ordinary soul beasts. It was almost untouchable. Every million-year soul beast was one of a kind. It was no longer possible to measure the value of a soul skill just by using a soul skill. Furthermore, no one in the history of the Douluo world had managed to obtain a million-year soul beast, at least according to Wang Feng's understanding of it. Not to mention, it was a sacrifice. Actually, my subordinates captured those two soul beasts and brought them here. They didn't want to harm them. Long Xie floated around Wang Feng and sighed. You have to know that the evil intent I absorbed from those soul beasts is very beneficial to the cultivation of many soul beasts. Those 4 evil soul beasts were like that. They killed too many soul beasts in the past. Every step they took, they would be obstructed by countless evil intents. These evil intents will become one of the obstacles in their way to overcome their heavenly tribulations. Wang Feng nodded slightly. Everyone would have evil intent. If his body hadn't been tempered by the red lotus karmic fire, he would have encountered all sorts of evil intents on his path of cultivation. Furthermore, why would there be more bottlenecks and difficulties as one progressed? Those geniuses who were born with a clear mind and a unique state of mind could cultivate very quickly. That was because their bodies were special and their minds were focused. They almost didn't have any evil intents. Of course, that was only one of the reasons. However, it did affect the cultivation of soul masters. It wasn't just soul masters. It was the same for all living beings who cultivated. I absorbed most of the evil intents in their bodies. This can increase their cultivation speed and make it easier for them to overcome their heavenly tribulations. Long Xie said, but when the water is full, it will overflow. When the moon is full, it will fall. I've already reached my limit. Furthermore, I can't become a true god. If I keep absorbing evil intents, I'll be in danger. That's why I need 2 soul beasts with less evil intents and pure auras to counteract my evil intent. Actually, this is a good thing for those 2 soul beasts. Because they've been with me for a long time, their cultivation has increased very quickly. It's a pity, now that you have my soul ring, you can easily absorb the evil intents of all kinds of soul beasts. The scariest thing is that you're not affected by the evil intents. Your body exudes an extremely pure aura. Even if you don't absorb their evil intents, many soul beasts will acknowledge you. They'll even be willing to stay with you. The longer they stay with you, the more their evil intents will be suppressed by your aura. Now that you can absorb the evil intents of soul beasts, boss, why don't you rebel against humans and become the king of soul beasts? Long Xie chuckled at this point. Wang Feng laughed. How was that possible? In fact, Wang Feng's golden lotus could make soul beasts evolve even if he didn't absorb their evil intents. That was even more terrifying. Long Xie didn't know that yet. However, he could absorb the evil intents of soul beasts. Wang Feng was very sensitive to soul beasts. He was able to find many powerful soul beasts with his golden lotus. At the same time, Wang Feng discovered the strongest ability of his million-year soul ring. It wasn't a soul skill. Because Wang Feng could absorb the evil intents of soul beasts, this meant that his 9th soul ring could be increased by absorbing their evil intents. Chapter 889. The first time he discovered this ability was on the 2nd day. Wang Feng was resting. At the same time, he was absorbing the evil intents of countless soul beasts in the great Star Do forest. He wanted to use this opportunity to find a suitable soul beast to test his soul ring. After that, he realized that the evil intents he absorbed were fusing into Long Xie's 9th soul ring. As the energy flowed through the soul ring, it gradually grew stronger. Although it was very subtle, Wang Feng could still sense it. He asked Long Xie about it earlier. Long Xie didn't have any experience when it was his first time becoming a 100-year soul ring. Naturally, he didn't know what was going on. He only knew that Wang Feng would become stronger when he absorbed the evil intents of soul beasts. Therefore, Wang Feng understood that his 9th soul ring had a certain potential for growth. As for how much it could grow, Wang Feng wasn't sure. It might take a long time for it to show. With the help of his ability to absorb evil intents, Wang Feng found several soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest. However, he only found 1 or 2 10,000-year soul beasts. There were too few 100,000-year soul beasts. These 10,000-year soul beasts were all corpses. They died naturally in battle, and his soul ring could absorb them directly. In the core region of the Great Star Do Forest, battles occurred frequently. It was just like the human world. Different soul beasts belonged to different factions. Before they were unified, there would be all sorts of battles and death. However, Wang Feng tried, and realized that his dark angel couldn't absorb soul rings. When he gave it his first soul ring, there was a strong repulsion. The power of 7 blood patterns couldn't absorb soul rings at all. This meant that he couldn't give his second martial soul a soul ring. Wang Feng didn't understand the reason. After a few attempts, he still couldn't absorb soul rings. Wang Feng even subdued a soul beast and sacrificed it to him. For other soul cultivators, it was almost impossible for them to sacrifice soul beasts to another soul cultivator. However, it might be difficult for Wang Feng to do so. 10,000-year soul beasts were too easy. However, he couldn't even absorb a 10,000-year soul ring. Wang Feng wasn't sure about a 100,000-year soul ring, but he couldn't find one anytime soon. A 100,000-year soul beast was too smart. It was probably hiding somewhere. It wasn't easy to find one. After searching for a few days, Wang Feng gave up. His dark angel couldn't give him soul rings for now. The power of 7 blood patterns had reached a bottleneck. Even his dark angel was like this, let alone Panga's axe? In the end, the primal chaos green lotus was still better. It could derive all things, regardless of flesh and blood, and could turn everything into its own power. His second martial soul couldn't bestow a soul ring, which meant that it was impossible for Wang Feng to use his second martial soul to greatly improve himself in a year. Then, if he cultivated to level 90 like this, with Bibidan's strength, he might not be able to beat him. He could now crush demigods, but against gods, even if he cultivated to level 90, he would only have a 60% chance of winning. Bibidan, on the other hand, was different. Her body had been tempered by the red lotus karmic fire and the primal chaos divine light. Wang Feng did not know how powerful she would become after she became a god. Wang Feng didn't want to be defeated. As long as I can achieve these 3 points, I should be able to defeat Bibidan. Wang Feng had a clear understanding of himself. The first step was to find a soul beast with its 9th soul ring. Wang Feng didn't ask for a 1,000,000-year soul beast. He would be satisfied with a soul beast of 8 to 900,000 years. But even after 8 to 900,000 years, it was still hard to find. With Wang Feng's current strength, defeating the deep-sea demon whale in the sea was a piece of cake. But if he wanted to kill it or make it sacrifice, it would be too difficult. Furthermore, this soul beast should be given to Tang San. There wasn't one in the Great Star Do Forest for now. Ditian could do it, but Long Xie was just bragging earlier. He didn't know where a soul beast of Ditian's level was. Furthermore, the evil thoughts of a soul beast of Ditian's level wouldn't be absorbed by Long Xie. Long Xie knew that Ditian was in the Great Star Do Forest because he had known for a long time. He was the first one to land in the Great Star Do Forest. Later on, Long Xie said that a huge battle had broken out in the God Realm, which was in the upper levels of the Douluo world. However, many descendants of the Dragon Clan, who possessed the bloodline of the true Dragon Clan, had landed on this continent. Some of them had perished, while others had hidden to recover. Tian was one of the purest descendants of dragons. In terms of seniority, Tian should call me uncle, Long Xie said proudly. Among all the descendants of dragons, he is the one with the purest bloodline, apart from those 11. His element is darkness, so evil thoughts don't have much of an effect on him. Hearing this, Wang Feng was a little surprised as he looked at Long Xie. This pretentious dragon seems to be of high seniority. No wonder he didn't care about Tian from the start. However, this fellow is very arrogant. Even if you can restrain him, he won't submit to a human. He should be cultivating somewhere in the great Star Do forest. Boss, if you want him to become your soul ring, I'm afraid you won't be able to do it anytime soon. Long Xie continued, the great Star Do forest is too big. I've been cultivating all these years, so I don't know where he is. I wanted to find this fellow and kill him when I came out. At the very least, I wanted to beat him up. Hearing this, Wang Feng was a little surprised. You're also a descendant of dragons. According to you, you're also his uncle. Why do you want to kill him? Long Xie sneered and said, Don't worry. Although I'm a descendant of dragons, I've been disliked by all dragons since I was born. Those pure-blooded descendants of true dragons don't think highly of me. They think I'm trash that has been abandoned. I don't have a pure bloodline, so I can't cultivate for 1,000,000 years. After all, they're all soul beasts that surpass 1,000,000 years. It's a pity that those who looked down on me were all killed by the gods in the end. On the other hand, I'm living well, cough cough. Alright. I was going to die anyway. Tian's father is one of the 11 that possess the bloodline of true dragons. He also possesses an extremely pure dragon bloodline. Apart from those 11, he's the purest descendant in terms of bloodline. Back then, his ancestor, the dragon god, even gave him some good stuff. He's very important to him. At this point, Long Xie couldn't help but laugh. What a pity! He's a prodigy of the dragons. Even the dragon god thinks highly of him. However, he can't compare to me, an evil thought that's been abandoned by the dragons. Based on my estimation, his cultivation is at most 800,000 years. It won't exceed that number. But I'm already 1,000,000 years old. Alright, although I'm only a soul ring now, I feel that my future is very bright. After all, you're the only one that can defeat me in so many years. Although I didn't use my full strength. Wang Feng seemed to have learned a lot of secrets from Long Xie's words. For example, there was another dragon that was a little older than Tian. However, he was still recovering in an unknown place in the great Star Do forest. Chapter 890. That bastard dragon god has already fallen. Long Xie looked up into the sky. But you might not know what the dragon god means. He's the ancestor of all dragons. He's the ancestor of countless soul beasts on this continent. He's stronger than a god. Unfortunately, he didn't want to die just like that. So, he split his strength into 2 and created 2 clones. One of them is this dragon. However, he was injured by an extremely powerful god in the god realm when he created his clone. Since then, he's been recuperating. Long Xie shook his head and sighed. If the dragons and the dragon god thought highly of me, I'd be 1,000,000 years old. With my innate talent and intelligence, I'll be able to beat those gods if I become a 1,000,000-year soul beast. However, an existence as powerful as me was viewed as trash by them. If it wasn't for the fact that I was abandoned and landed in this place, the divine realm would also be surnamed Long by now. Wang Feng smiled at Long Xie. Most of what this pretentious dragon said was true. He was just too pretentious. In fact, if things had developed normally, he wouldn't have been able to break through the 9th tribulation. He wouldn't even be able to survive the 9th heavenly tribulation and would be reduced to ashes. However, He was abandoned here and could only absorb the evil thoughts of the soul beasts in the great star Do forest. If Long Xie had been given a better cultivation environment, he could have reached a higher level. If he had been protected, he could have become a monster. A better cultivation environment. If Wang Feng were the dragon god, he would have created a small world and placed a bunch of evil soul beasts in it. He would have let them fight and kill each other every day. Countless evil thoughts would have been generated. Long Xie could have cultivated and increased his fighting strength. It wouldn't have been difficult to nurture him. He probably wouldn't have been able to become his soul ring. After listening to Long Xie's explanation, Wang Feng learned a lot more about this guy. However, Long Xie still wasn't willing to tell him how he was born. If I can't find one in the Great Star Do Forest, I'll go somewhere else. Wang Feng looked in the direction of the extreme north. His underlings were all there, so he knew the soul beasts there very well. If he couldn't find a suitable ninth soul ring, it would be very difficult to defeat Bibidon. The second condition was that he had to possess 6 soul bones. If he could fuse the soul bones into one and create a similar divine equipment, Wang Feng's strength would be greatly enhanced. However, the only thing Wang Feng knew was that the chaotic divine light could fuse soul bones. Thus, the problem was back to his 9th soul ring. Only after obtaining the 9th soul ring would the chaotic divine light appear again, cleanse oneself, fuse with the soul bone, and increase one's potential. The third condition was that one's spiritual power had reached its limit. The so-called limit was naturally to solidify this jelly-like spiritual power into a real solid. This way, Wang Feng's strength would also be greatly enhanced. Spiritual energy was now related to several of Wang Feng's powerful abilities. Xianming Blood Dragon Armor. A 1,000,000-rank external attachment bone. The flying swords formed now were all greenish-red in color, and their power was already unimaginably great. Any soul beast below a 1,000,000-year soul beast couldn't withstand the power of Wang Feng's imperial sword. In other words, even a rank 99 transcendent Douluo wouldn't be able to withstand Wang Feng's mysterious underworld flying sword. If Wang Feng could condense his spiritual power into a solid state, he would definitely be able to cause damage to a deity. And it wasn't just a normal attack. His spiritual power was also related to the chaotic 8-note. At the same time, it was related to a powerful soul skill formed by the Xianming Blood Dragon Armor. Godbinding Scale Cage. That's right. A new soul skill had appeared on the Xianming Blood Dragon Armor's 1,000,000-year soul bone. It was Long Xie's powerful control-type soul skill. It could be said that it was the most powerful soul skill Wang Feng had ever seen. It covered a huge area and it couldn't be broken. Even someone stronger than Long Xie wouldn't be able to break it in a short period of time. It was both offensive and defensive. The interior of the soul bone also contained powerful offensive abilities. As long as the exterior was attacked, the interior would also be attacked. After the fusion of the Xianming armor and the Blood Dragon armor, the external soul bone that was formed was extremely tough. It was also very heavy. Wang Feng estimated that it was at least 200,000 kilograms, and he had sensed it over the past 2 days. It should be around 250,000 kilograms. This weight was equivalent to 2 tridents. After condensing it into a piece of armor, Wang Feng could easily kill a large number of titled Douluo if he threw it out. Most importantly, because it was more compact after the fusion, Wang Feng could maintain the Xianming Blood Dragon armor at 1 to 2 meters long if he turned it into a flying sword. It didn't seem that big, but it was very unpredictable when it came to killing enemies. Therefore, Wang Feng's spiritual power was very important to his current abilities. The enhancement brought about by this 1,000,000-year soul beast also made Wang Feng's body unbelievably strong. He used his strength in the most direct way. If he was in his best condition and unleashed his full strength, his strongest strength would be more than 1,000,000 times. Even a demigod would be severely injured with a single punch. The prerequisite was that he didn't focus on defense. Even if he wasn't in his best condition, Wang Feng's casual punch was still ridiculously strong. After one's strength reached a certain limit, it was very difficult to increase it further. It wasn't something that could be surpassed by soul skills. There was a limit to how much soul skills could increase one's strength. This limit was what one's body could withstand. It was also where one's potential lay. For example, if he gave someone he didn't use a tenfold increase, the effect would be very different. Some people could unleash the full potential of this tenfold increase in their attributes after a tenfold increase. However, some people couldn't. This was because their body's potential wasn't enough for them to support such a strong force. Even if he was strengthened by another 20 times, his final outcome would most likely be his body exploding, and he would die. Wang Feng's casual punch was more than 200,000 kilograms. According to Wang Feng's various soul skills, he could increase his physical strength by at least 40 times. However, Wang Feng's strength wasn't 40 times more than 200,000 kilograms. It was only about 1,000,000 kilograms. This was his limit. There were two reasons for this. The higher one's strength was, the harder it was to increase it. Just the increase in attributes from soul skills couldn't allow Wang Feng to unleash the same amount of strength. Another reason was that Wang Feng's body's potential wasn't enough to support such a strong force. Simply put, the increase was too much. For example, when he fought Long Xie earlier, his full-strength punch exceeded 250,000 kilograms. It was close to 800,000 kilograms. Even Long Xie couldn't resist it. That was the limit of Wang Feng's strength. This was something that Wang Feng had come to realize recently. After being cleansed by the first chaotic divine light, Wang Feng's potential increased tremendously. His limit was 500,000 heavy silver pillars. After that, it was difficult for him to increase it. The absorption of the million-year soul ring had also increased Wang Feng's body's potential, fundamentally changing this point. This changed Wang Feng's body's potential. His body's limit exceeded 250,000 kilograms. It was more than 1,000,000 kilograms. If that chaotic divine light had landed on his body, Wang Feng's potential would have reached another limit. This was because that was the chaotic divine light from the chaotic green lotus after absorbing the million-year soul ring. If Wang Feng had absorbed that chaotic divine light, he would have been able to withstand the increase. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.